Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 106. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us for this Wednesday show, and I'm just really excited, Dave. We are just more than 24 hours away from day one of the 2021 NFL Draft. All that pre-draft work and a great job by our team can finally be put to rest, and we'll talk about the guys who actually become Pittsburgh Steelers.
Absolutely. A great day, great weekend to be alive for sure. We'll have new Steelers to talk about, and obviously undrafted free agents on top of the draft picks and all. And I'm not sure we gleaned that much from what all was said the other day. There was a few nuggets that we picked out of there, I think, pretty good. The Tomlin and Colbert press conference and all, and just an exciting time of year, and you mentioned it. Let's use the top of the show here real quick to thank all of the contributors to Steelers Depot. How many profiles are we up to now? I know we were up to 250 the last time I counted. I'm a little bit behind on getting some of these things entered in with some links into that pro day result sheet here.
Yeah, I'll have to count the final number. The last two profiles are going to go up today, the last two or three. I think we're going to finish around 260 to 265, which I'm pretty sure is a record for Steelers Depot.
Absolutely, and they're just fantastic. They're very detailed. They're more than just a couple of paragraphs that you see sometimes on other sites. That'll do player profiles and all. And we just had a Steelers Depot production meeting. Corporate email went out last night. They're talking about let's see, what was last night? Tuesday night, and we've got I think a unique way of kind of attacking post-draft content on these players as well, too, that will not only keep all of our contributors busy, but I think present kind of new and exciting, different, deeper dive angles into all of the prospects. Obviously, we hope to have all of the player profiles. The goal is that we're going to hit all of them this year, and hopefully we will. But obviously, any that we don't, and undrafted free agents, will get those draft profiles right up right away. Going to do character background post, I think, on all the players here. And once again, the thing I'm most excited about, I think, is the way we're going to be having these guys drilled down into all these new Steelers players.
Yeah, we're going to attack it from every single angle. So the contributors that have been such a valuable, part of the Steelers Depot team, they're going to be with us, right after the draft and certainly through the summer. So we're going to be keeping you guys busy over on SteelersDepot.com. Plus, they all did their mock drafts, and so I'm glad that they could post their mock drafts and kind of give their final predictions of what direction I think the Steelers will go starting tomorrow.
Absolutely, and once again, can't thank those guys enough, and obviously, Dr. Mel and her contributions, and just everybody in general. I mean, it's so amazing to look back. 13 years, Alex, and been doing this. Never dreamed that the site and all would grow to what it's become today, and just super proud of the work you do, Matthew. You and Matthew have been by my side for many years now, and a lot of the other guys are coming up on 5, 6, 7 year marks, I think, and all as well too. So once again, kudos to the Steelers Depot team.
Absolutely. All right, Dave, earlier on Wednesday, you posted the Steelers Depot draft contest annual. How long has this draft contest been going on for? Several years now.
Yeah, I've been trying to do it for years now. We switched up the format a little bit on it, I think, a couple of years ago, because of the trading that sometimes goes on, kind of made that tough to score and all like that. So we redid the format a couple of years ago, and I think it's gone over really, really well. We're even up in the cash prizes this year. Alex, $250 for first place. I didn't run that through the through the corporate department, but $250 for the first place winner, $100 for second place, and I think we're going to do $50 for third place this year. It's very, very simple. You go to SteelersDepot.com, you find the contest post. It outlines all the rules. It has a link that you can download there, and what you're going to do is you're going to list 50 players that you think can become Steeler draft picks over the weekend here. And then you're going to list the round that you think each of those players are going to be drafted in. And then obviously the scoring goes from there. You'll have to download that spreadsheet or copy it into Excel. And then you're going to have to fill it out, email it to admin@SteelersDepot.com. And it's going to obviously take several days, probably a week or two to get all of them scored correctly and all, but that's the contest again this year.
Yeah, and be sure to include your name, your email address with a link to your PayPal account, and as you point out, do not duplicate players in those 50. If you duplicate one of those players in your list of 50, it will be your entry will be voided and not count. So be sure to make sure and double check you're not counting a player twice on that list.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave, you had your mock draft, your final prediction for what the Pittsburgh Steelers will do starting tomorrow night. And I know you love doing mock drafts, but I think this one turned out really well. I think I was really excited with the direction you went. It was a unique direction, one we don't see too often, but I think it makes a lot of sense. So I'll let you kind of take things away. Who do you have the Steelers taking at pick 24?
Yeah, the little bit of contrarian side that's built up in me reared its head a little bit on top of the huge tinfoil wearing side of me. Look, I mean, to me, it came down to a choice of three players. Those three players are obviously Najee Harris, I think Travis Etienne, and Landon Dickerson. To me, those are the three. And apologies to the, can a guy like Zaven Collins wind up being the guy, Tevin Jenkins? Yeah, but, if I'm going to adhere to the principles of the pro days and Tomlin and Colbert being there, I had to stick to that small list of guys. And really, it's more along the lines of that narrowing down list that you posted. I don't know. It's been, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. And all like that, not a huge selection of guys to really choose from overall, guys that you think could possibly be first round picks, guys that had Tomlin and Colbert at their pro day, yada, yada. But I settled on, on probably one of the, we've seen him obviously mocked to the Steelers, probably not as much as obviously Najee Harris, but that would be Landon Dickerson, the center out of Alabama.
Right. Yeah, and that's probably been, at least of the Steelers Depot contributors, I'm actually pretty sure only two names were mocked at 24. It was Najee Harris, the most popular selection, of course, and the second most popular, the other selection, I should say, was Landon Dickerson. I believe a couple of guys, Josh and maybe somebody else, and now yourself, mocking him there. And I think you made a really good point about Dickerson and the medicals. Like either it's not really like first or second round kind of thing. Either you like him enough to take him in the second round, you're going to like him enough to take him in round number one. So it's not really, it's like a first or fifth round evaluation with him. Really, it's not really a first or second. So if Harris wasn't there, or even if he was potentially, and you want to get that center that's physical, nasty, tough, certainly at a big position of need, and want to build this thing inside out, which is how I would personally build these teams, then I think Dickerson is a really logical candidate and obviously a great fit in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, look, it all comes down to the medicals, right? Plain and simple.
Sure. But it's the indications we get, just a little bit we're getting from the outsiders, seem to indicate the Steelers are comfortable with his medicals, at least more than some teams. It does not sound like he's off their board or they have a fifth-round grade on him because of the medical situation. And as you said, if you're going to take him in the second, what's really stopping you to take him to taking him in the first round?
My theory on it is either he's on the board or he's not. period. And do I know? No, I don't know. Do I know his medicals? No. I thought Dr. Mel did a great job with her terrible take on the injury situation with Landon Dickerson over the weekend there. I was really, in fact, I tried to prod her for information before she even got the terrible take out, because I was so interested in getting her thoughts on that. If the medicals pass and he's on your board, do you see the Steelers saying, yeah, but with him,
for an outside medical reason?
No, I'm just saying, okay, let's say his medicals pass. What do they put a round grade on him at that time? Does that impact his round grade any? How much does that impact his round grade, I guess?
I mean, if his medicals are passed, then he would just go back to the tape grade or the overall, non-medical related grade of it. And so if that's a first-round grade, then the medical is going to keep it there. If you dock him, if the medical docks him, then that may dock the overall grade into something else. But if he passes the medical, then I could certainly see and would imagine this team would have a very high grade, probably a first-round grade on Dickerson, the player and the person.
I think not only the tape, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, he was the first actual profile we did this year. You did it, right?
One of the first, yeah, if not the first. I can't quite remember the order of things, but one of the first 3 or 4 for sure.
Man, when you go back and you look, I mean, by far the tape, talking about a healthy Landon Dickerson, this is the top center in the draft and arguably the best offensive lineman in this draft, is it not? Is he not?
I like Creed Humphrey a lot still, and so the tiebreaker for me was, I went Humphrey over Dickerson because of the medical evaluation. I think Humphrey might be a little bit more of an explosive athlete as well, but Dickerson is obviously a very good offensive lineman. Could be a center, could also be a really good guard. Not that the Steelers would necessarily need him at guard right away, but he has that potential. Played there at Florida State, and certainly has the physicality, the toughness, the run blocking, and just the finish. The Steelers have made it abundantly clear they want to get guys who fit that mold, and Dickerson and Tevin Jenkins probably fit the mold of the Steelers offensive lineman they're looking for better than any other lineman in this draft.
And playing a little small part in that is I'm not 100% convinced Najee Harris will be there for the Steelers at 24. Obviously, that's just speculation. I think when you look at 2 teams in particular, the Dolphins and the Jets, I think those are 2 teams that could potentially draft him as well too. Look, this is no knock on Najee Harris. I mean, I will be one of the least shocked people out there if Najee Harris winds up being the pick. I just have a feeling that to properly address the offensive line, if you can get, or running game, if you can get a top tier center. And look, I mean, the Steelers have a long history of having great centers. Am I correct?
Oh, sure. I mean, again, no team knows the value of a center more than the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And if that's the case, and just looking at Dickerson's background and character and hearts and smarts, I mean, he checks every single box, and sometimes he checks those boxes 3 times over there. I think the Steelers are attracted to him, and plain and simple, it was a coin flip for me, Alex. Do I take a chance on the medicals being okay, or do I not? I came to the conclusion about a week ago that if I got myself where I thought maybe the Steelers were comfortable with his medicals, I was going to make him the pick over Najee Harris. If I didn't, then Najee Harris was going to be my first selection. And plain and simple, I understand all the pushback I will get from that as well too, because I mean it is the huge elephant in a room when you look at Landon Dickerson and his injury history.
Yeah, it is. But as you pointed out, there were injury concerns with T.J. Watt and Pouncey during his NFL career, battled injuries and overcame those things. So I think there's some level of precedent there that would maybe indicate this team is going to be comfortable with where Dickerson is at medically.
Right. I mean, if the medicals aren't there, he could fall like a rock. I mean.
Sure.
Not only out of the first round past the Steelers, but I mean, you could theoretically see or being plausible that he falls on down deeper into the draft if a couple of doctors found something there or think something long term there. he could sink like a rock. So I'm just betting that the medicals will be good enough for the Steelers, and I'm betting that if indeed that is the case, that is their guy.
And is that more of a bet that Harris won't be there? I know you kind of implied maybe he won't, but when push comes to shove, do you think Harris is going to be on the board at 24? You had to take your best guess. Because what I'm asking is, if Harris and Dickerson were both there, do you think they would take Dickerson over Harris?
Look, I obviously don't know where these guys are going to go. We have an idea of what, you just go by Gil Brandt's rankings, and you could probably pull out 25 of the possible first 32 selections, right? And have a pretty good shot at that. I'll put it to you this way: if the choice came down to a cleared Dickerson and Najee still being on the board, I think the Steelers would choose Dickerson.
Okay, I like that.
So
I would lean Harris, but I can see where your head is at for sure.
Obviously, I think they like Harris. I mean, no team could probably have more fingerprints on Najee Harris during the pre-draft process than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, the other names I consider there: Najee Harris, Travis Etienne. I know there's a few reports out there. I think Jason Lockenfora says, well, they like Javonte Williams, and that might be, but just once again, the fact that only Eddie Faulkner was at that pro day, not Mike Tomlin, not Kevin Colbert, leads you to believe they might go a different direction there. Asante Samuel Jr., I don't know where that kid's going to land there. All it takes is one team, and I think the Steelers really, really like Asante Samuel Jr. I think he checks a lot of boxes for them as well. The same with Azeez Ojulari, the edge out of Georgia. It basically came down to really, I think, those 5 players for me to rank and to make the decision from.
Yeah, I think that's a strong list of 5. As a spoiler, in my 7-round mock draft, which will drop tomorrow, I have Asante Samuel Jr. going to the Baltimore Ravens, which just feels like a Baltimore Ravens thing to do, kick him inside and be a thorn in the Steelers' side for the next 8 years.
Yeah, we saved the Ravens Depot portion of the podcast until after the draft when we're talking about all these guys landing there, right?
Like Landon Dickerson's probably going to get drafted by the Ravens now, probably. All right, round 2, 55 overall. Really interesting selection here. A name that's been commonly mocked at Pittsburgh, especially for the camp of mock drafters who do not go running back in the first round. But an interesting selection here. But I like this one a lot. I'll let you explain.
I put myself in a corner here. I put baby in a corner, didn't I?
Baby in a corner.
You don't go running back in the first round. I would have been pitchforked to death had I not put a running back in the second round here. And I think the obvious selection, if the Steelers do decide not to draft a running back in the first round, and I'm assuming Javonte Williams will more likely be gone there too. Trey Sermon out of Ohio State. This is another. I think what cemented it really for me was that report by Tony Pauline yesterday. And once again, how much does he really know? Is this just lip service? I don't know. But and even going back to the pro day interviews, Trey Sermon sounded genuine in the fact about his talks with the Steelers during the pre-draft process and what they told him. They like his game, yada yada. Now they might say that to all the girls, but it just you start connecting all the dots there. You start connecting the build, the measurables, everything about it when it comes the way he runs. Where the likelihood of him possibly still being on the board at 55 overall in this draft, he became really the obvious choice for me. And once again, this stems from me thinking Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams will be all off the board at that point. 55 seems like the perfect spot to nab a guy like Trey Sermon. It might be a little bit early. Some people might look at this and say, "Boy, that's a little bit of a reach." I get it, but if you don't get him there, you're probably not going to get him in the third round. Would be my viewpoint on that overall. So if you like him enough, he's going to have to be your guy, assuming you bypass a running back in the first round and assuming Trey Sermon is still on the board. I thought the Ohio State head coach, what's his name, Day?
Day.
I thought he was real upfront about Trey Sermon as well too during his pro day, post pro day media session and all too, saying, look, they're going to get an NFL team is going to get him back with not a lot of mileage on him overall. Still a kid with a lot of experience still, and he addressed the use of Trey Sermon in the passing game. Saying, look, this is a kid that can do it all, even in the passing game. We just didn't use him enough, quite honestly there. And I think if you go and look at his actual ability to function, in the passing game, that's there to be improved on at the NFL level. And I think this guy too, even though there were very few games where they leaned heavy on him, I think in the instances that they did, he rose to the challenge.
Yeah, I think the name and the fit obviously makes a ton of sense. I don't think any Steelers fan would disagree with you on that. I think people would just have the point of contention with why put him at 55. But I like that more than 87, because if he's the last of like your guys that you believe can be a feature back and have the size and frame and ability to be that every down guy, do you want to risk and wait till 87 and hope and pray that he's there? Probably not. So I think Sermon at 55, while it may feel like a reach, actually makes probably more sense than putting him at 87 in that third round. Now, the questions, again, are just he's never been the guy before, so there's an element of projection there. And there are some injuries. He tore his ACL in 2019. He had that shoulder injury in the national title game. Running backs get hurt. It does happen, the nature of the position. But there are going to be, I think, some concerns there about can he handle that workload and what could be the longer-term implications of that torn ACL.
Fair enough.
But I like the pick, and I actually like it at 55, because I mentioned that a couple weeks ago. I'm like, maybe Sermon could go 55. We get locked in on 87, 87 for Trey Sermon. He has to go in that third round. But I think 55, actually might fit better than slotting him there in the third round.
What did you think about the Pauline report?
I mean, he mentioned it before, and it does sound like, because it was almost an identical report he had on Najee Harris. They love Trey Sermon. They think he's a perfect fit for the system. I think Pauline said the same thing about Najee Harris, but I believe it. I mean, it's not like it was a report that came out of left field. I think we kind of had a strong feeling for a while now. They had some interest and probably liked Sermon's game and his build. So I think that was just kind of the final, nail in the coffin that said, okay, they really, could consider this guy.
I really, really gave high consideration to putting Pat Freiermuth in that spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we both did.
I think, and look, if you go offensive line, if you go anywhere other than running back in the first round, and you get to the second round here, if Sermon's off the board, if Freiermuth is on the board, I can really see that being one. I can see that going several different directions, because obviously Freiermuth could be off the board. I suppose there's a chance Sermon could be off the board at that point. Then you get into kind of the Eric Stokes territory. Obviously, Quinn Miners would not. I considered him in that slot overall, but that was if I were to go a different direction, and not get a center in the first round there, and Liam Eichenberg out of Notre Dame. I think of those four names: Freiermuth, Stokes, Miners, Liam Eichenberg. Regardless how the first round goes, I think, and then Sermon too added to those four names, I think there's a good shot that the Steelers' second round pick comes out of one of those five names.
I do too. So we both had, Freiermuth as the runner up at that spot, which 100% means he will now be drafted at 55, and we'll both be making that small mistake there.
Look, you know how I feel about Freiermuth. I think the Steelers really like him, and I think you wrote an article, and we'll cover that a little bit later, of guys that we could really see, or you could really see being Steeler draft picks this year. All the dots are there, and they need a tight end. I'm not sold on where the value is there. Okay, yeah, maybe Pat Freiermuth is the number 2 tight end, just by default. I think it's obviously a huge gap between Kyle Pitts and Pat Freiermuth, especially on the receiving end of it. Freiermuth's blocking was better than what my initial dive through the tape was. It went a little bit deeper, and I saw a guy. Look, he's not great. Okay. It's not like I don't believe he's the best blocking tight end in this class. But he is above average. I think there's a lot to work with there. I kind of still view Pat Freiermuth, quite honestly, as a little bit souped up version of Jesse James. And take that for what it is.
Yeah, no, understood. But we know he's certainly in least consideration for the team. Third round, pick 87, going off-ball linebacker here with Baron Browning. He was in your first mock, too, I think in the second round. I forget where you were, fourth round. I forget where you put him at, but you have him in the third round here.
All right. Plain and simple, I trying to read in between the lines of what Colbert, and Thomas said about the inside linebacker, maybe parsing those comments a little bit too much. We've talked about what's going to be the linebacker position of need more than the other one. I mean, you could make a strong argument to go outside linebacker here versus inside linebacker, or you could really look at the depth chart at the inside linebacker and said, you know what, they really could use an upgrade at the inside linebacker position as well too. I debated going several different ways with this here. I think Barnes, obviously another kid out of Purdue. I think the Steelers like. I think is a possibility here. I'm not so sure he's third or fourth round kind of guy there. Baron Browning at Ohio State, kind of, people will say, well, how did he get kind of lost in the shuffle there? Well, he had some talented guys there. They had some very talented linebackers that a bunch of them are going to get who? Fields. Who are the linebackers there?
Tough Borland, Pete Warner, Justin Hilliard.
Hilliard was the one I was trying to think of real quick there. But when Baron Browning got to play significantly, especially more kicked inside, he played very, very well. I think potentially of all these linebackers, Ohio State linebacker, off the ball linebackers that are coming into this year's class, I think he is the one that could potentially survive the best as more of a 3-down kind of guy. I think he's good in coverage. Boy, look at his RAS score. That's another thing that sold me on him. The Steelers love these sparky, or now I think we have to call it sporky kids, right?
Yeah.
Sporky kids. A sport score of 144.4. Are you freaking kidding me? And RAS score of damn near perfect, 9.98. Now, where did he fit in measurable wise on the what the Steelers look for list?
Let me pull that up here give me a second here and Vamp talk about Browning. Yeah. So how did you overcome the athleticism kind of took over and made up for the lack of production concerns? Was kind of the way that you viewed that thing?
Yeah. More NFL upside versus actual total game production. I mean, this is a clean kid through and through. It's just, once again, I think he kind of got lost a little bit in that litany of talented linebackers that the Buckeyes have had for the past 4 seasons. The Steelers like guys with obviously playtime experience, and he played a lot of games there, amassed 111 total tackles, 7 sacks, 2 passes defense, 2 forced fumbles in 43 total games. They go to Ohio State Pro Day every year, right? I mean,
just about, yeah.
I mean, they know this kid inside and out, and we got to see the shot of it. I don't know how much to read into it. Once again, another box, the Senior Bowl, okay? That's obviously huge with the Steelers. Senior Bowl, obviously having the measurables, having the game experience and all like that. And I bet they know this kid inside and out. And Mike Tomlin spending a little bit of time with Baron Browning at the Ohio State Pro Day also kind of sealed it for me. So, and I think Browning might have been, I couldn't find out for sure. I think for maybe a game or two, he might have been a game captain and all. I don't think he was a full-time captain there.
Tough Borland was like their full-time captain.
Right. But regardless, he's got leadership abilities. I think he has the ability to survive as a 3-down back at the NFL level. I just think they like him. I think they could use another inside linebacker on the depth chart, and that was the pick there.
Yeah, for what they look for, I don't know if I had enough data on off-ball linebackers, so I don't think I have really one I've done before. But for the edge guys, I know he's played a little bit of edge, but I know he's an off-ball here. He's going to check every single box, and just looking at his measurables and frame and testing, I imagine if there was an off-ball linebacker study, he would check every single box he put up. I mean, 40-inch vert at 245 pounds is just absurdity. 6'7", 8'3" cone. So he's just a physical freak.
Right. And once again, I could really see, once you get into these, past first two rounds, it really kind of branches out in the direction that you could go. If I had my druthers, really, look, I couldn't go three straight offensive players just for the sheer fact that when's the last time the Steelers have started a draft with three straight positions on the same side of the ball?
Mm-hmm. It has happened, but usually more defense. But it's rare, but it has happened before.
I think if I had my druthers, I would have put forced to redo this thing right now, and I can't put a defensive player on that side of the ball. I think I would put Spencer Brown in there. I've talked a lot about both those kids coming out of that school there, and if you wanted a tackle, I think the third round at 87th overall, I like the chances of a guy like Spencer Brown still being on the board there. That would be the time to do it. Also, edge Peyton Turner, a guy that we've talked quite a bit about out of Houston, would probably look perfect there. Shaun Wade, Shaun Wade was another consideration there. A lot of buzz on Steelers Depot about Shaun Wade, right?
Yeah, Scott Pavelli's been really big on the Shaun Wade bandwagon, and he's really convinced me that I think Wade could certainly be the pick, and I almost went with him in my mock draft at pick 87. Ultimately went with Ardarius Washington, but Wade was a guy that struggled in 2020, had a turf toe injury, got moved to the outside corner spot, really struggled, probably is going to fit best in that slot position, but that's probably what the Steelers need, I would guess, more than they need outside corner right now, would be a slot guy. So I think Shaun Wade would be a great fit there, third, fourth round for him.
I think I have my Big Ten quota.
I think so. You have your Ohio State quota very much hit here for the next 5 drafts.
A lot that played into this too, Alex, I think with me is I wanted to stay closer to the big known schools, guys that I think the Steelers know because they're, all that COVID has how COVID has interrupted the process the last couple years. It just, if you're short data in certain areas, why not stay close to the big school and the big school stars, right. the pedigree type guys.
Mm-hmm. I get that, but you look at last year, 2 of their top 3 picks were from Charlotte and Louisiana Lafayette. And one guy didn't go to the combine. So, I think there's some degree of reality to that you want to go with the Power 5 guys who played and guys that you're going to are more comfortable with the evaluation on. But at the same time, that last year they took a guy from, Charlotte, which is low-end FBS, and Louisiana Lafayette, which is in a similar boat.
Sure.
But I like the pick there on Browning. I think there's some upside there with him. I also like the pick at 128 in the 4th round with tight end Tommy Tremble, the man you've talked about so much. So I'm glad you put him in your final mock draft.
Boy, once I finally got around to him, and once again, look, so many duties on Steelers Depot now more than ever. The site's busier than ever. My day, and we're also dealing with some outside variables right now. With we're trying to maybe do some upgrades on the site, so that's been keeping me busy, and everybody knows I've been sick on top of it and been kind of fighting that as well too. It took me a lot longer to get into the tape on several of these players, and Tommy Tremble. And you think shame on you, Dave? Tight ends, you late to the party on that? Yeah, I was, but once I got around to Tommy Tremble's tape there. And we talked recently on a recent podcast about that, so I won't go too much deeper into that. This guy might be the closest we've seen to George Kittle since George Kittle's draft class, right?
Ooh, high praise.
He's now. I want I'm high on at least one tight end every year. Last year I was the Charlie Warner fan club leader and all like that, and more of a later round guy. Type possibility there. Obviously didn't think he was anywhere close in the George Kittle realm. I would rank Tommy Tremble somewhere in between Kittle and Charlie Warner. I mean, this just a smidge undersized there, but I mean, there's not a lot not to like when it comes to his tape there. Blocking obviously not perfect, but he doesn't throw guys out of the club the way or on the same consistency that George Kittle did several years ago, when you looked at his Iowa tape. But there are a lot of other similarities outside of that, and including to really not being used a lot in the passing game. And I think his overall kind of size, how he kind of got. And why in the hell he kind of got lost in? Well, he did get lost in between. We talked about Kmet, that other up-and-coming tight end that they had there on top of it. Kind of lost, I think, some snaps in that there throughout his college career. But boy, if the Pittsburgh Steelers want to improve their running game, and isn't that one of the primary goals this offseason is to improve the running game? If you answer yes to that question, and if you already have a running back and arguably the best center in the draft in the fold, man, you have got to get yourself a tight end that can block. And this guy in Trimble, you can obviously attach him to the line of scrimmage. You can detach him if need be. It's not like we're talking about Matt Spaeth out here as a receiver, I don't think. Now, obviously, Matt Spaeth was another one that, I'm trying to think back, wasn't used all that much in the passing game at Minnesota there.
I thought he was. Didn't he win the John Mackey Award one year as the best tight end in college football?
Yeah,
but look up his numbers.
I'm trying to remember if that was more for his blocking. Maybe he was used more in the passing game than what I remember here. But obviously at the NFL level, Matt Spaeth played second fiddle to Heath Miller there and wasn't used much of all in the passing game there. Tommy Trimble, if given the opportunity to, I think he can function fine. I think he's a guy that push comes to shove. Who was the old Colts tight end a few years ago?
Jack Doyle.
No, before Doyle was Peyton Manning's target for all those years.
Dallas, not Dallas Clark. Or
yeah,
Dallas Clark.
Okay. Sort of like a Dallas Clark.
Okay, I like that. Yeah.
I mean, do you see it?
I do. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things I like about Tommy Trimble. I like Tommy Trimble. I mean, and plus he's 20 years old. Like, those contexts there we have to keep in consideration with him is that this guy's hopefully going to get better and still has a lot of room to grow. He's not played a ton of football, not a ton of tight end in his career. So I like that for sure. Maybe Dallas Clark's probably a touch too strong, but I get the baseline comparison you're making there.
All right, but we both agree this is not George Kittle II, right?
Yeah. And the thing with Trimble is that, and I'm gonna
he's not wired. He's not. Hey, I watched a couple of interviews on Trimble. He's not wired. Being a little bit unhinged myself, I like those people that don't have the bolts screwed down quite all the way, or might be one of them be a little bit over tightened a little bit. George Kittle is all of that and more. I mean, he's a god in my book when it comes to tight ends and everything that you kind of look for on the tape and everything that goes along with it. Trimble's not that, but once again, as I said at kind of the top there, I believe Tommy Trimble is the best thing we've seen since George Kittle in the draft when it comes to kind of an all-around tight end.
I'm going to sound like you here and ask, will new tight ends coach Alfredo Roberts, one of his responsibilities be feeding Tommy Trimble with his 37.8 inch arms? That is not a lot of length. The Steelers, every single tight end has had at least 32.5-inch arms, and all but one have been 33+. And so the size would be, I think, the biggest knock on Trimble in the Steelers' eyes.
Sure, we might have to take up a GoFundMe to have a personal assistant feed Tommy Trimble. Look, if that's what it takes, fine. But and look, I think that's part of the reason why some of the measurables aren't there with him. The arm length obviously being one of them, and overall production stats. Production was it? Did have a couple of very disgusting drops at Notre Dame. But look, I think, and it's a smaller sample size than Freiermuth, but not by much. When you look at Freiermuth, what do you have? 90-something career catches at Penn State there? But if you look at what we have in the tape overall, I mean, the average depth of targets kind of nice and robust for Tommy Tremble. There's no big inflation there, I don't think, because of big plays, busted coverages that you'll see with a Freiermuth. I think he does adequate yards after the catch, and he can block. So here's to him not landing with a team. If he's not the pick by the Steelers, which obviously high probability that he won't be. Here's to him landing somewhere in the NFC, sort of like with Kittle and the 49ers, where that doesn't have to be thrown in our face very much. And and boy, if they draft Kellen Mond over, if the Steelers draft Kellen Mond over Tommy Tremble in the 4th round, send help, please. Just tell them to no need to send the ambulance, okay?
Yeah, 2 sidebars with Freiermuth. I was watching that blown coverage against Nebraska, and that kind of was the moment I realized this guy is not super dynamic, where he's wide open, and he still got caught at the 1-yard line and still got tackled despite being wide open on that play. And then Matt Spaeth, his career 109 receptions, almost 1,300 yards, and 12 touchdowns. His Mackey award-winning season was 2006 with 47 receptions, 564 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Pretty good numbers, especially for 2006 in the era that was college football back then.
For back then, that's high production, right? Right. And he was there 4 years, right?
All 4 years.
To have over 100 receptions and a tight end and an offense way back then, it was a little bit higher than what I remember. Obviously, when he got to the end, what do you have in the NFL? 20 catches, maybe?
Maybe about 20 catches. Not many.
All right.
So if you thought we weren't going to talk about Matt Spaeth's Minnesota career, you were wrong.
Look, I was a little bit going off track here. I was a huge Matt Spaeth fan.
He did his job well in the NFL.
He really did, and a lot of people, when he left during free agency that one time, I thought that was one of the worst decisions, and obviously cap reasons, yada yada. I mean, you understand the reasons behind it, and a lot of fans, I think, were kicking him out the door and all like that. But he was what he was, folks, and that was a blocking tight end, and for several years there. I mean, think about it. When's the last time the Steelers' running game has really, really been good? Is when they've had a good couple of tight ends in there as well too. Like it or not, Matt Spaeth had his warts, but I think he was very undervalued, and it was not a huge surprise at all when Matt Spaeth ended up coming back after his time. Where was it? Chicago, I think. Coming back to the Steelers there. So. If you want to run the football in today's NFL, man, you better have a tight end. And I'm not talking about Joe Haig and Kevin Rader. And no, I'm not trying to throw Kevin Rader out, but he is what he is. I think Tommy Tremble is that and a lot more. This team obviously doesn't fully know what they have in a guy in like Zach Gentry. But to think that Zach Gentry's ever going to reach the level of blocking that even Tommy Tremble is, or Pat Freiermuth is coming out of college right now, I think you're fooling yourself.
Yeah, very unlikely there. Matt Spaeth, by the way, 55 career receptions, 42 of those in Pittsburgh in his 7-year Steelers career.
Okay, and one other note, just to make sure everybody understands, I think I'm not. Where it comes to Pat Freiermuth, I really do think that he could wind up being a Pittsburgh Steeler. I would be fine with that. I just think if given the choice, I'd rather have Tremble in the 4th than I would Freiermuth in the 2nd.
Fair enough. With your other 4th-round pick there at 140, the one where both of our mock drafts are in harmony, going Tommy Doyle, the offensive tackle out of Miami, Ohio.
Man, if Spencer Brown lasts this long and is the pick for the Steelers, I want full credit. All right. I let the "he won't be there" crowd get to me here, and I still think there's a tiny chance that a guy like Spencer Brown might make it to the 4th round. However, if he doesn't, you get into that realm of like the like the 14th or 15th best tackle. I think if you look at history, not that every NFL draft can be compared side by side or anything like that. But I think if you just look at the averages overall over the last 5-year period when it comes to the tackle position and how many are gone, by the time, the 140th pick around, I think you come up around somewhere between like the 12th or the 15th overall tackle taken in a draft there. This is that line right below. Tommy Doyle is at that line, in my opinion, right below the Stone Forsythe, below the Spencer Brown. Throw me out another name. That may be strong. Carson Green. Carson Green is a guy I got too late too, and I think we just had a profile go up on him on Steelers Depot in the last 48 hours there as well too. I think that's a kid that's a little bit undervalued here.
I did the report on him. He's got good size, good length, a nasty run blocker, good experience, and the Steelers had interest in him, so he checks a lot of boxes. Depending on obviously the list that you look around the internet, which absolutely is the worst way to scout guys and all like that. But I don't think you'll find a lot of them with Carson Green maybe in that top 15. But I would put him right there at that level there, fourth round guy. Yeah, I think fourth mid-round value would be perfect for him. So one of those fourth-round picks I think fits really well.
Tommy Doyle, got to have a Mac kid in there, right? And he has size. I believe he can play. He was an East-West Shrine Game invite, totally clean, has the athletic traits marked, especially for the player his size. Needs some work, obviously technical. I think sometimes allows himself to overset sometimes. But man, when you're looking at tackles with size that can play left and right tackle, guys with experience, guys that are kind of battle tested, you're kind of, once again, I think you're at that mark in this draft where you go from, oh boy, I really would like a tackle from this group of 13 to, okay, well, we didn't get one of those. This is the next best available.
Mm-hmm. Very much a developmental tackle, as I mentioned on Monday's show, but great size, 6'8", 320, really good athleticism, good feet for a guy that big. Physical in the run game. He's got about equal experience at left and right tackle, 16 starts left tackle, 14 at right tackle, so his versatility for either side, so there's some comfort there, which is impressive, but he's got to work on his balance, his hand use, overall technique. He's still a pretty raw guy, didn't play a lot of, didn't start playing offensive tackle until he came to Miami, and he had to add a lot of weight and kind of get used to his new body and things like that. But a really, I think, interesting developmental guy that's really kind of risen and improved his draft stock throughout the 2020 season, and then I think also through this pre-draft process.
Who was that? Who'd you have listed at the Miami of Ohio Pro Day?
I do not know who was there. I only know that they were in attendance. Probably Dan Colbert, considering that is MAC territory for him.
Okay. All right. And look, I mean, that's, obviously in Ohio, it's not unlikely that maybe a guy like Clem was there, right? Or was Clem somewhere else on that day?
I would have to check because I saw the Miami Ohio stuff late in the process, so I'm not sure. My guess is that he wasn't there, but okay. I don't know for sure. But probably Dan Colbert if I had to guess.
Okay, all right. Other guys I kind of consider there, obviously edge is something that, man, I bat edge and cornerback. Kind of those guys that can play inside and possibly outside. I battled throughout my mock draft, and you probably did as well too, of trying to fit certain positions. There's just so many needs,
Yeah. Someone's going to lose. Someone's going to lose out.
Yeah, there's going to be a position group that loses out here, and I went into this with an open mind, thinking, okay, maybe an edge in here, maybe a slot cornerback, but I just couldn't get one in there, and I knew that I wanted to try to go heavy offense on the first four or five picks of this draft, and that's where I'm at right now. I got 4 offense, 1 defense.
And you also now have a second defender with your 6th round pick at 216 with Dalen Hayes, the edge out of Notre Dame. Why'd you go Hayes?
Yeah, I love the kid. When you try to put yourself in the Steelers' shoes and the old hearts and smarts and the checks all the boxes and guy that you root for, and guys that, and really I was not surprised at all. And I'm kind of giving letting one of the packages out of the bag here. You wrote an article about seven players that you think during the draft you could really see being Steelers, and I knew he was going to be on the list right after that pro day interview, because you and I listened. What is not to like about this kid? In fact, I think along the lines of the article about Dalen Hayes out of Notre Dame that you wrote about, this kid could become president.
Well, here's the problem. Here's what I don't like about Dalen Hayes: his tape.
Right.
I love everything else. I love everything else about this kid. His tape, though, he's battled a ton of shoulder injuries. I just didn't get too excited about him as a pass rusher.
Right. But there is the ceiling is, I think the NFL ceiling overall is low on him. But I think there is still some room for him to progress. And with kids like him on top of it, I don't think you can put baby in a corner. Those are the kind of kids that I don't think that you can bet against. No,
yeah, you're right. And yeah, he's going to work. He's going to work his tail off, be a great, locker room guy, great community member, all those things. But just the shoulder injuries, and he just didn't get to play a whole lot in Notre Dame. He just always was battling injuries and part of rotations, and I didn't see anything athletically that told me like this guy's going to have room to grow or get better if he can just stay healthy. So, I mean, I think he become a really good special teams player, or number 4 outside linebacker, but as a number 3 rotational guy, spot starter, I just didn't see it there with him.
Right. I would agree with that. I mean, technically flawed, doesn't really rush with a plan, I don't think. Overall, he did. Here's some of the. I guess we should talk about what can he do. He did stand up quite a bit. Has played on his feet quite a bit on both sides there. Moved around quite a bit. I think fairly decent against the run.
Yeah, he plays the run hard. He's versatile. He's sharp in the coverage. I mean, he's experienced. I think he's a good scheme fit in terms of just what the Steelers ask their edge guys to do.
You put kind of the Anthony Chickillo tag on him. And that will sour a lot of people, but Anthony Chickillo served his purpose, on the roster for several years. I think he can be a better pass rusher than Anthony Chickillo.
Yeah, I put the Chickillo label in the sense of a really quality special teams player, but maybe not a ton more than that. I don't think Hayes is as big or as long or maybe quite as strong against the run. How big is Dalen Hayes? Let me check his size on that. I don't think he was as big as Chickillo. 6'3.5", 253.
Well, remember Chickillo came out of Miami as a base end, so he had to go the opposite way. I think even Dalen Hayes lost, and how much he had to lose for the pro day and whether or not he'll maintain this and all. But he got that weight down a little bit. What, about 10 pounds? I think, didn't he?
Did he? I don't know what he
at his pro day. I think it was like 253. Wasn't he somewhere like 260 or something playing for Notre Dame? I thought I saw that. But here's the thing that doesn't match up overall. He put up if you want to talk about Steelers and RAS and scores, athletic scores and spark scores and all like that, he passed the mustard at his pro day. I mean, 115.7 spork and 7.92 RAS for a kid this late in a draft. That's not bad. Now, once again, though, do we see that on the tape? And the answer really is not entirely no.
Right, and I'm no math wizard. I know he's a little bit bigger of a guy, but I'm trying to figure out how he scored that high, because if you look at the individual testing, no number really jumps out at you. 4.75 40. I mean, I would consider that below average. I mean, 26 on the bench is pretty nice, but at a 32.5-inch vertical, that's not good. 9.11 broad is about average. A 4.3 short shuttle, I guess, is decent, and a 7.2 on 3-cone, which I would consider average to below. So I don't know what athletic number really kind of pops at you when he breaks things down individually.
I think that RAS score also takes into the account height, weight, and all.
Sure, right.
All
but
like
I mean,
that.
He's a bigger guy, but he's not 200. He's not Bud Dupree,
Right.
So these are, he's not some giant, massive. Janarius Robinson, for example, put up much better athletic numbers, and he's a much bigger, longer guy than Dalen Hayes. So 6th round pick. I mean, I get it, and I think he's gonna be competitive and make the room better. I just don't know how much of a ceiling there is with this guy. But I think, from a smart standpoint, like, he is the quintessential Pittsburgh Steeler.
And that played a lot into it. Also, I mean, what are you going to get this late as well? I tell you, the other Notre Dame edge too could possibly be. I don't know how much earlier he's going to go, but. I think they're going to kind of more likely go around the same kind of fifth, sixth round overall there, but they're just going to fall in love with Dalen Hayes, the person, and he does check a lot of boxes overall, right? I mean,
sure,
plain and simple, and usually when it comes down to it, if you're conflicted late in drafts. At least me, when it comes to mock drafts, I try to stay close to home, obviously seniors, obviously, and a lot of the other boxes, the athletic scores, the hearts and smarts, the Senior Bowl. I think what he a captain as well too. Yep. I mean, there, other than, like you said it, other than the tape just flooring you. Or it really didn't come close to flooring you. But, I mean, there is some upside there, but let's acknowledge the fact that there is, I think, a low ceiling in there. I think it's a step above a Chickalo. How much more? I mean, we'll see. And, obviously, I had, the later you get into some of these picks, you don't have to take the deeper dives into a lot of these guys there. So I was kind of at the mercy of a lot of what you did on your profile and a lot of clips.
I just wonder if he's going to be cleared medically, too. Could he be one of those medical concerns? Because, again, there is a long history of shoulder issues. He missed most of his senior year with a shoulder separation. He tore his labrum. I mean, he just missed a lot of time. I think it's been the same shoulder, too. So I just wonder, almost Travis Feeney, we're just going to have this glass shoulder, which would suck. But I just wonder there's a medical component that we have to think about as well.
Sure. I totally get that as well, too. And that's where you really got to rely on your medical staff and all the things that go along with that.
7th round, 245. Here's a name that I didn't even really recognize, and so I'm really interested to hear more about him from you. DJ Daniel, the corner from Georgia. How did you come across him, and why did he end up in your mock draft?
He just when you start going down the list of places where the Steelers visited and trying to stay closer to home and in the need category and the box category. I have Excel spreadsheets, believe it or not, set up for all this where I can filter down, kind of quickly on some boxes checked. And throughout this process, he's kind of been a name that's always been there, but you say, and in fact, we didn't even have a profile on him. Shame on you guys. We're going to have one soon, right?
Yeah, I believe Jonathan said he was going to get
it. Right. This is and going back through kind of the history on this. Now, look, I had to do kind of a rush kind of run through the tape on him because I had not really paid that much attention to him during the draft process. Obviously, went to Georgia. Was a 2-year player at Georgia. Came out of a military school before that. 2019's better tape than the 2020 tape, but I think he had an ankle injury or something in 2020. Better man than he is off. All right, so that's a plus. You'd like to see him better against the run. For someone that going to probably have to play inside, a pure, I think, at the NFL level sub-package cornerback here, went to the Senior Bowl, had his pro day, depending on, there's some conflicting numbers, I think, too, on his pro day numbers, if I'm mistaken. Talking about his Senior Bowl too, he was voted, come to find out, he was, Daniel was also named the top cornerback at the Senior Bowl's American team in a vote from the wide receiver group at practice at the annual player award ceremony. I don't know if you've gone back and looked over the years. Steelers like those kind of guys that come out of those practices with those awards. You know?
I did not know that. That's good.
I did not know that until last night as well, too. So it pays to kind of dig as far back as you can. There's not a lot about him on Twitter either. I mean, normally you see some of these these draftniks that we follow, that do great work and all. There is just not a lot about him. I don't know how this kid. No, look, Is this a second-round diamond in the rough here? No. I mean, he's obviously got his warts, injuries. I think hurt him during his 2020 season, but he is look. Mike Tomlin, Kevin Colbert, Grady Brown were all at that pro day, right? So that counts for something. Was at the Senior Bowl. Once again, I think there's a little bit of question on some of his times as well too. I think there's a big dispute over that 4.62 40 time there. And I think if you look at Twitter, you'll and research that, you'll find that when it comes to him.
What are other times being reported? Someone saying like he ran a 4.4 and someone
I think some of that's on there as well too.
And his length, this dude's super long for just under 6 foot, 33 3/8 arms. Seriously,
right?
That's crazy. That is a rare blend.
He can feed Tommy Tremble.
He can feed. Yeah, you draft DJ Daniels to feed Tommy Tremble. I like it. I like your plan.
Once again, I'm not super up on, he's got I think, did this guy he's one of these kids, I think, that just missed the cut in like one box or two on what the Steelers look for too, wasn't he?
Well, based on these athletic testing, I can check, but he probably missed quite a bit because the athletic, from what at least has been reported, I know it's in dispute, probably missed on a couple. Give me a second here. I can pull up where exactly he may have missed.
I thought he was on the just missed or
maybe. Let me check here. Give me 1 second. While I pull up my file. He missed in the 40, the vert, the broad, and the 3-cone.
Okay, well that's a lot.
Yeah, but again, if these numbers are in dispute, then maybe there's some question there.
But go research some of the things on Twitter about him that's out there, and really there's not a lot of tape on Twitter about him. That was the most surprising. This is one of those that the Lord sends you, the helicopter and all these things, and you keep ignoring it. He's kind of that late round prospect that I ignored for most of the process here, and I finally said, you know what? Let's look at him. So a lot of boxes checked. I don't know if he's the guy. In fact, I think obviously teams know a lot more about DJ Daniel than the rest of us. There might be an opportunity that we're looking in the fourth round. DJ Daniel comes off the board.
Yeah. So you say he had an injury because he barely played. At least the stats. I mean, he had like 9 tackles in 2020. I don't know how many games he played or what, but. What's the reason for that?
Yeah, I'm going to have to.
Because the tape on him is just he started 11 games in 2019 and then barely played in 2020 and was a 2-year guy at Georgia, so there just isn't a ton of tape out there on him.
Yeah, and that's probably I forget what I came across on. Let me see if I can. Why don't you vamp here for a little bit?
Because I'm just wondering. Okay, was there an injury? Was there a COVID thing, or was it because there was so much talent at Georgia at corner with Tyson Campbell and Eric Stokes? I mean, Georgia has 4 or 5 defensive backs who could be drafted this year. It's up there with UCF and Oregon in terms of just depth and all this talent in the secondary. You're just trying to find out why he didn't play much. So and what the reason for that is, and will the Steelers be comfortable with probably a lack of tape on him? But if he had a good Senior Bowl week and a good performance there, then that certainly is going to be favorable to him in the Steelers' eyes.
Let's see here.
He looked like 9 tackles the entire season in 2020, and I think Georgia played, quite a few games. If I can pull up.
I'm trying to remember what I came across him on.
Looks like he played 4 games in 2020.
I thought I saw ankle or something on him. I might be confusing him. Let me see. Are you seeing anything with him on maybe ankle or?
I can look up any sort of injury stuff. Looks like there was an injury. He had an ankle, yes. He had an injury way back since camp and bothering him some, according to Kirby Smart. And
okay.
I'm reading great.
I think if you go back and you look at his 2019 tape, in fact, Jim Nagy said he had heard that a lot of teams had a second-round grade on Daniel based off of his 2019 tape.
Wow. So, yeah, that might be that kind of sleeper in the rough there. I just actually got Jonathan's report on DJ Daniel literally just right now. He says Daniel would be best suited for slot duties in the league where he can play close to line of scrimmage to aid and run support and be used on occasional blitzes off the edge. He is best suited for zone coverage where he can play the ball in front and not have to carry receivers in fear of drawing flags galore at the next level. He says a late day 3 projection on him. Liked his ability to recover, his quick feet, great length, he says, and did not like some of the testing and lack of tracking of the football.
Okay.
So we'll have that report later today. Probably by the time you're listening to this, you'll see the report on DJ Daniel.
All right. How great is that? Just dial up a report from one of our guys.
Yeah, I literally just got it a minute ago.
I had asked Jonathan to get on that last night because I knew I was going to be releasing Daniel in my mock draft there. Over obviously not neither one of us going deep dives in here. Thoughts on that selection overall?
I like it because it's different, and I think these mock drafts have to have some sort of, new name to them and not just the same recycled 20 names we talk about, throughout the majority of draft season. And I think there's some sleeper appeal there with Daniel. I would want to know and verify his testing numbers because if those are, accurate testing numbers, then he may not fit the profile the Steelers look for. But I think there's an intrigue there in terms of the 2019 tape versus how raw he is versus just the rare length for that size is pretty intriguing.
Let me see if I can find a little bit more on him on that 40 time.
Yeah, because 4.6, because the Steelers generally secondary DBs, they want some guys who are going to be sparkier, especially if they're going to play on the outside. Was he an outside guy at Georgia, at least in 2019? Jonathan seems to like him in the slot. I don't know where he plays.
I think he moved around a little bit. Once again, I haven't kind of at mercy of a late dive into him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, do you still want to look up that 40 time on?
Yeah, I'm trying here, but
yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, the Steelers will have their own times too. I mean, they're at their pro day and they're doing their own hand times, and I don't know why teams do that because you just go off the official electronic times. You can still, I think, pull from even these pro days potentially, but that is something to be worth mentioning too. That the team's times can be different than what the official time is listed as.
Let me search Jim Nagy's feed here real quick.
I think you're about to pull up LexisNexis or something on DJ Daniel 40 times here. But yeah, Senior Bowl guy, and maybe some upside there as a 7th round flyer. I mean, it's a 7th round pick, so it's worth probably taking a guy that had good tape a year ago, and maybe you can try to recapture that magic and maybe sit on the practice squad for a season.
Yeah, I'm not finding it, Alex. I don't want to sit here and do live searches on. I mean, we do that enough there. But I think let's see unofficial some unofficial 40s here. I'm finding for some guys 4.50 on Daniel. I thought I saw some other on here as well too. Yeah, I'm not fine. We'll have to talk more about it after the fact.
Yeah, when they draft him, we'll talk about it. All right, with your final pick, 254, I knew you were going punter. I just didn't know what punter you were going to go with, and ultimately you landed on Drew Chrisman out of Ohio State, the third Buckeye in this draft.
Yeah, and how many Big Ten guys do I have? I have more than my quota, right?
Yeah, you are good to go on that.
Look, I don't know how far deep analysis people want on a punter here. You took my Max Duffy, right? I mean, no, you took the Georgia Tech.
No, I went Presley Harvin.
Right, you took the Georgia Tech punter. I had already taken. It sounds like, and here we don't specialize in punters by any stretch of the imagination here.
We have a scouting report on him.
Yeah. It seems like teams might have Duffy as maybe the top one, right?
I've seen different. I've seen some people go Duffy. I've seen a lot of people say James Smith out of Cincinnati. I personally, for whatever it's worth, and it's probably not worth much, I have Drew Chrisman as my number one punter of the 4 I watched between Duffy, Harvin, Smith, and Chrisman.
Well, after bouncing around just on limited amounts of tapes, that's the way that's the way I came away from it as well too. But I think if you look at rankings across the Google and the internet, you'll see maybe Duffy at the top and all like that, and really sometimes you'll see Chrisman, like the second or third. I think I couldn't in good faith have any mock draft this year without a punter on it, right?
Yeah, you've been talking about it for pretty much this whole draft season.
And I know people will say, well, all right, if you want a punter, just grab one of these undrafted punters here. Well, here's the thing. A lot of other teams are probably going to be thinking the same thing, and the Steelers don't pay anybody any signing bonus money. So unless they're going to give the whole kit and caboodle to one of these punters, which I guess is a possibility, I'd be surprised if they did, they're going to be fighting to sign an undrafted punter. Now, obviously, a punter should look at the situation and say, well, the Steelers, I got a really, really good chance of winning that punting job there. Who cares about the signing bonus I get? But if you want to ensure yourself of having a punter, good college punter, have competition in camp, you got to draft them.
Yeah, especially, again, for the Steelers not being too aggressive when it comes to undrafted guys. So if you want to ensure that you get your guy, not that you have to bank on convincing him to sign with you, then you go out there and get him. And Chrisman is a really, I think, overall just consistent punter. I don't think the upside is huge with him in terms of the leg or anything like that, but just very consistent, a quick operation, and also reportedly a very, very good holder, which is something you have to consider as well. He was a holder, I think, his whole time at Ohio State, and apparently was one of the best holders in college football, and that's going to be important too for your kicker.
All right, that's it. That's the mock. That's the tweet.
I'll ask you the question you asked me as soon as you hit the old publishers or schedule button. What did you kind of regret when you thought about it a little bit more?
The biggest thing is what's going on. Trying to get an edge in there. I'm not thrilled about Tommy Doyle, the tackle. I like him, but if you want a good one, you probably want to get up in more in the third round there, I think, and secure yourself. Maybe a guy like Spencer Brown, who has his warts too. Look, Spencer Brown primarily played right tackle, I think, in college as well too, and didn't play many games this past season. Smaller school kid on top of it there. My biggest regret is trying to fit in certain positions into this draft. I wish I would have had 2 more third-round picks or something like that. Dalen Hayes, probably the most questionable, I think, of where he is. I toyed with the Baylor edge and as one of the picks there. Just not happy overall coming out with the edge that I came out with. I think, and then obviously waiting a little bit later to get the sub package corner that I got. What was a regret, but overall, I wasn't going like, oh man, I didn't have that sinking feeling that I normally get, I guess.
Mm-hmm. But I like the top. I think the first 4 picks are really interesting when it comes to Dickerson and Sermon and Browning and then Tommy Tremble and Doyle as well. Actually, I really like Tommy Doyle. It's one of my favorite picks you have that you did in this mock draft. So yeah, it's just tough to make all these picks fit because you have 8 of them, only 3 in the top 100, and you have a lot of needs on this team. So in my mock draft, tight end got the short end of the stick because I put edge and I put slot corner above them. So, in your case, it was edge and corner that kind of fell a little bit. But, what are you going to do?
And obviously, look, because you go in positionally and only choosing one position normally in these mock drafts, I mean, my entire mock can get blown right out of the water if they take Najee Harris in the first round because that would obviously make the second round selection of Sermon, wrong. And then you kind of wonder, what direction are they going to go in that third round pick? Did you glean anything from Kevin Colbert going on about the inside linebacker measurables the other day?
Well, he was asked about it, so it wasn't like he said it unprompted. And then I kind of went in the other direction because at the very end he said, we have to remind ourselves Devin Bush is coming back next season. We're very excited about that. So that kind of signaled that, it's less of a need because we have to recognize that we're getting our stud linebacker back.
I guess you could say I fell more in love with the player and the relationship and the boxes checked more so than position. I guess if I had to do it all over again and I couldn't have an inside linebacker in the third round there, I would have went edge there if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I would personally do that, but I understand why you went Browning there, and I think it does make sense. So I think it fits okay.
Once again, my main goal is of the, I think, 40 total players listed in this mock, the actual selection and the other 4 that were considered. Man, I sure would like to hit 3 or 4 of the picks out of that group of 40 players.
Yeah, I hope so. I think you got a good chance at doing so.
All right. How am I faring in the comments there?
I actually really haven't even checked the comments much today. Let me go ahead and see what the first ones were. I like this mock except for number 1, so that's passive aggressive to start
there's that.
Some people, one guy said nice draft, hashtag round 7 punters. Let's see. Yeah, it's pretty good feedback there, I think.
All right. Well, the poop throwers aren't up yet.
Well, okay. One says it looks like you threw darts at the board while day drinking. So
okay. Well, there you go.
Oh, I like this one. I think if your mocks are very chalk and just very much, what we talk about, then they're going to be wrong because it never goes the way we think it's going to go, and that's the subject of my terrible take today. It's always going to be surprises and always things that you didn't expect or things you may not always like either.
All right, that's it. That's the list.
That's the list. All right, Dave, sticking with draft talk, on Monday we discussed the offensive preview position by position for the 2021 NFL Draft, what guys we think will be interested in Pittsburgh, or what the Steelers' interest in particular players, I should say, and then just kind of recapping and previewing the position groups at large. So we'll do the same for the defense today, starting with the defensive line, and as we've talked about and as Kevin Colbert mentioned during his presser on Monday, this defensive line class is pretty weak overall, one of the weakest in years. The good news is the Steelers really don't have a big need there and really no compelling reason to draft a defensive lineman this season.
Yeah, and I think this really kind of it shows that we did our homework, I think, early on, kind of going through some of these names and reading up when it comes to this class. There just wasn't right out of the chute when you're looking at some of the Senior Bowl guys and all like that. Man, not a lot of guys that really kind of fit what the Steelers look for, especially when it comes to those 4 eyes, 5 tech, classic, as we said, 6'4" or taller, 302 to 313 pound guys. Not a lot of those guys littered in there. And we kind of say that Marvin Wilson at Florida State was probably, at least on paper and where the Steelers might take a defensive lineman this year, that he was it. That's it. That's the list. Maybe Milton Williams, Louisiana Tech, was potentially another guy, but even he, I think, was a little bit light in the pants there. So I'm going to go on record and say that, man, if they dropped a defensive lineman at all this year, and obviously I'm not expecting them to do it, I think Marvin Wilson out of Florida State could potentially be the guy.
Yeah, but that's going to require, I think, a day 2 pick, and it's probably not going to be where Pittsburgh's at. Yeah, he's a good player. He's got really good hand use for a guy of his size. I think he moves well. He's got pretty nimble feet. But, Milton Williams, Carl Dunbar was at his pro day, but he's got the size, the height, weight kind of works, but a lack of length, 31.5-inch arms. He tested really well, but I think he's more of a 3-tech, gap shooter than he is going to be kind of a base end. So I don't think he's going to be particularly on their radar.
I think someone maybe post-draft Jack Heflin out of Iowa, maybe.
I don't know much about him.
6'3", 304 pounds. But really an undrafted type, I think.
Okay, I like Bobby Brown out of A&M. Big guy, 6'4", 321, who tested really well. That's a guy that I don't know where he's going to get drafted, but maybe a day 3 type guy. But yeah, defensive line overall pretty weak. I'll also mention in terms of the 4-eye, Taquan Graham from Texas, 6'3", 292, 35-inch arms. That's probably about as close as your 4-tech or 4-eye fit that you're going to get. All right, Dave, now looking at the edge rushers, we know the Steelers are very likely to draft an edge rusher at some point, can really come at any point. Edge overall, it's not really top-heavy, but I think there is some good depth and some good names in that mid to early day 3 range.
Yeah, I think I think the list of guys that could potentially be Steelers when we think they might address this position, I believe starts with a guy like Peyton Turner out of Houston in maybe that 3rd round. I think Ronnie Perkins is someone that the Steelers might like. Rashad Weaver in that mid-round area would be another one. The other Pitt kid, Patrick Jones II, more of a mid-round guy. And then, I mean, you kind of get into those 5th, 6th, 7th round guys, of which I think Dalen Hayes is a part of. Ade, how do you pronounce the other Notre Dame kid's name? They'll draft him. Yeah, that was 2 years of hell for me on that. Ellison Smith is another guy. I said right from the get-go that I was probably going to put a Northern Iowa kid in my mock draft. That obviously didn't. The final one didn't happen that way. But Ellison Smith is one of those edge rushers. I really think I talked about the Baylor, thinking about maybe shoehorning the Baylor edge, William Bradley King, into this one. Janarius Robinson is a guy that you really turned a lot of people on, I think, kind of midway post pro day in this process here. So that's another name that I think you could see when it comes to potential edge guys there. Who have I missed?
No, you hit on most of the names there. I would just mention a couple more. Victor Dimukeji out of Duke, kind of a stocky power rusher. Jonathan Cooper from Ohio State had a nice Senior Bowl week, had injuries at Ohio State, kind of limited some of his production and upside there, but I think there's some potential there in terms of someone that stays clean, is just a good pass rusher overall. But yeah, I mean, I think Peyton Turner would be a great fit for the Steelers. He's big, he's long, he's got really good bend for his size, his motor's fantastic, production strong, personality's off the charts. That's a guy that, even as early as 55, but maybe at 87, if he slips a little bit, would look really good in a Steelers uniform.
Hamilcar Rashad Jr., a guy I've talked quite a bit about out of Oregon State through this process. But the deeper you get into the film, though, right? You got another Dalen Hayes here.
Yeah, and that 3-cone time of 7.51 is ugly.
I mean, I would not be surprised maybe if he went undrafted. And the Steelers maybe brought him in. Chris Rumph is a guy I never saw it on his tape. I don't know how much Duke tape you got to here, but I tried to get a little bit into Chris Rumph there, and just on the ground a lot and a little bit light in the britches, and I just didn't see it with him, and I think a lot of people have him as maybe a potential 4th or 5th round prospect.
Yeah, just too light for me at 235. I think there are some edge guys. There's certainly going to be some options there for Pittsburgh. I know Tom's been a big fan of Teron Jackson out of Coastal Carolina, late day 3 kind of guy. The other Florida State kid, Joshua Kendo, super athletic, really freaky frame. Probably better as a 4.3 guy, to be honest with you. And the production was just incredibly light for him. And same with Robinson. The production was better for him, but some of the context of it was not as good as some of the numbers may suggest. So, and then at the top, you can mention Oweh out of Penn State and the Georgia kid that could be the dark horse at 24, maybe. Someone like that. But I think that probably edge is going to start the conversation somewhere day 2, rounds 2 or 3, in a best case earliest round scenario.
Teron Jackson out of Coastal Carolina. Did you watch any on him?
Not really. I know, again, Tom's been a big fan of him. The testing was not great for him, but he does have good size at 6'2", 254. Some of the explosive numbers at 3-cone time is pretty ugly. They were at his pro day, though, which is important. Dan Rooney Jr. did a 10, so maybe there's some level of interest. There's a couple other Coastal Carolina kids to look at, so it's not just Jackson, but one guy on the list. And then
the guy that checked all the boxes, who was in my first mock draft that I really toyed with. I didn't, you get into that aspect of how much carryover should I have from my previous mock draft and all like that. I really toyed with the idea of putting Shaka Toney. The more I get into his tape, though, because of the athleticism that's there, I guess I got into the realm of, man, that's more of a guy maybe be off the board early 5th round and all like that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he does fit one of 2 players to check every single box, and his teammate Oweh was the only other to do so.
Right. So if to me, I think this, and I know Kevin Colbert says edge and all that, like that kind of deep and all. I guess it is if you're willing to take one in the middle rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think so.
3rd, 4th round, but what's that would be the spot, right? It would have to be the 3rd round or one of the 2 4th round picks, I think, is the or obviously in the 6th or 7th round. But if you're really high on the Steelers getting an edge this year, and one that you say, I can see it, I can see him being the number 3 at the start of the season, all like that. I think that pick's got to come with the 3rd round pick or one of the 2 4th round picks.
Yeah, I think that's a sweet spot for it. I'll give you one more sleeper. Malcolm Kuntz out of Buffalo. Some of the best bend I've seen in this class. Really, really good job. Good job of turning the corner, flattening, and getting upfield. Plays to run hard. Maybe a little bit lankier, but I was really impressed with his tape, his burst, and definitely that bend and ability to corner.
If you had to bet, what's the more likely to draft a edge in the 4th round or 6th round? Or no, I'll give you the 3rd round. 3rd round or 6th round? More likely possibility for the Steelers to draft an edge. What round?
I feel a little biased because I've really been banging the table to draft an edge, but I'll say 3rd round. I just don't think if you do 6th round, that guy's not even guaranteed to make your team. And then who's going to be your number 3? I mean, I just don't see how you can go into the season with Cassius Marsh and a 6th round pick battling to be your top backup.
All right, and look, I mean, that's you're not going to get an argument out of me as far as that depth chart goes. You would have thought that we would have seen somebody else added to that depth chart by now, right?
You would have thought just some low-level free agent just to give you some competition and, so you don't feel so obligated the way they do right now to address the position. So I was surprised by that.
Maybe they'll
could have brought in Ryan Anderson. You could have brought in Derek Rivers. They were both cheap one-year guys. I just don't understand why it didn't happen.
And look, I mean, Cassius Marsh, definitely good on special teams, or I shouldn't say good. Yeah, he's good. I wouldn't call him great on special teams. I think he's above average player when it comes to that. But he's not going to give you anything, not a guy I want to see out there for 12 snaps a game.
Yeah, I thought you were going to do the Cassius Marsh bless his heart, because that's the way I describe him, of just bless his heart. But, man, he's not the number 3 on this team.
Right, he's already got a foot out of the league. I mean, that other one might get there by September there. All right, that's edge.
Yep, off-ball linebackers. Been a ton of buzz, and I know small school, not at the pro day, but ton of buzz about Zaven Collins, and he's on my list of guys who just feel like a Steeler, because I don't think any team's a better scheme fit for Zaven Collins than the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, look, I mean, how many times have we talked about him? Planet Theory type of guy. He there's no doubt about it, man. He sticks out on tape. You cannot miss him. But you'd probably it certainly does sound like you'd have to spend a 1st round draft pick on him to get him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he would be the guy at 24. He's not going to be there at 55.
All right. Jamin Davis is a guy I think that fits out of Kentucky. I've seen some people, Bucky Brooks even mocked him to the Steelers in his last mock draft in the 1st round. I found that a little bit of surprise. If he goes down into that second round range, I could see that. I'm not sure I ever really saw it with Nick Bolton as far as a top 50 player. Did you?
No, when you're under 6 foot, 237, and your athletic scores are average at best, I'm not sure what the allure is there with Nick Bolton.
There's always a couple of these guys year in, year out that it's on everybody's list of top 50, top 60 players, and you just kind of scratch your head on. Look, I'm the same guy that missed on Chris Jones a few years ago. I never saw it on the college tape with Chris Jones, the defensive lineman for the Kansas City Chiefs. Nick Bolton's the guy I never saw it, Alex.
Yeah, I would not try. He'll probably be drafted around top 50. I would not draft Nick Bolton.
Baron Browning, definitely, I think, on the list there. Chaz Surratt, you want to talk about hearts and smarts and great story and yada, yada, and I could see him maybe being a Steeler. Now, he is a little bit light in the pants, He's in that Jeremiah Owusu Koromora. See, I got that name down now, and they're probably not even going to draft him there. But if you're looking for kind of that hybrid guy, obviously JOK is one of those guys. I think Chaz Surratt out of North Carolina is another one of those guys.
Yeah, he could be your starting linebacker and starting quarterback in 2022. Began his career as a quarterback and moved to linebacker and racked up a bunch of tackles for Mac Brown. So that's a guy that's someone that you're definitely going to root for.
Derek Barnes out of Purdue. It's hard not to connect the dots there.
Yeah, he's big, he's explosive, he's physical. He's played edge in 2019, played more of an off-ball role this past season. That's a guy that I think has quietly, quote-unquote, risen upwards in this process just as people kind of get more familiar with the name. And he's someone that, before the draft or right as draft season began, we thought maybe day 3 kind of guy. Now I'm thinking, even third round kind of guys, Derek Barnes.
The other guys I have circled here, Garrett Waller's another one of those kind of hybrids. I would think. I'm an old school Vince Williams type guy, even though you need some better athleticism. KJ Britt out of Auburn, man, that guy does it for me. He might go undrafted. He might be 6th, 7th round. But if you want an old school, no nonsense, kind of off the ball inside linebacker, I really like KJ Britt. Buddy Johnson, another guy, Texas A&M. I think maybe could be on the board in the 6th round. Guy. Past that, I mean, Grant Stewart gets the guy that you root for the most award.
Yeah, had him in my last pick in my mock draft. I also like Tony Fields from West Virginia. I thought he had a nice Senior Bowl week and plays to run well. So that's a day 3 option.
Give me 5 names on this on the inside linebacker prospect list that you could really, really legitimately see being Steelers because of where they'd be drafted, yada yada.
Let's see. Barnes for sure. I'm just going to go kind of down the list here alphabetically. I'm looking at the combine list here.
I want to see if we can nail one of these 5 because we're not even 100% sure they're going to draft an inside linebacker.
No. I had Stewart as mine, and I barely even considered that as an inside linebacker for my mock draft. It was a special teamer. But I'll go Barnes. I'll go with you in Browning. I know it's breaking the history, but I'd be remiss if I did not put Zaven Collins on this list. I'm going to go Barnes, Browning, Collins. And then from there, I mean, kind of take your pick. I'm not sure what other guys I would feel like I would put in that camp. McGrone from Michigan, maybe. And maybe Stewart, since I mocked him.
Okay.
So that's my 5: Barnes, Browning, Collins, McGrone, and Stewart. Any disagreements there? Would you swap out any of those names?
Collins. Because I wouldn't have him on the list because I don't think you have to spend a 1st round draft pick on him. I think.
Yeah. No, I get that. Pete Warner too. A really strong college career and tested well. His pro day.
I would go Jamin Davis.
Well, they weren't at his pro day either.
Yeah, but I think people have him overrated. I think he's more of a 2nd round guy. So.
But does he get to 55, or is it like an early 2nd round guy?
I think maybe there's a possibility of that. Jamin Davis, Baron Browning, Chaz Surratt, Derek Barnes, most definitely. Nobody screams it more, I don't think. And Buddy Johnson. Is that 5?
Is that 5? I should have put JOK on that list, which I know is a 1st round pick, but I've talked him up so much, so I would swap out McGrone for JOK.
Okay.
Anyway, we'll see. But it's a good off-ball linebacker class, I think. Corner class, Cobra called it deep. I think there's some decent depth here. There's a lot of talent at the very top of this list. A lot of 1st round corners are probably going to go in this draft. And then for Pittsburgh, it's just a question of what do you value? Do you want an outside guy or a slot guy? I think both you can make a case for in this draft. Probably more slot than outside, but either or.
We had a conversation with all the guys on direct message not several weeks ago about both those Georgia guys, and Eric Stokes more from the overall measurables aspect. Tyson Campbell not too far behind him, but Tyson Campbell I think screams checking all the boxes aspect. I think Tyson Campbell screams Steelers potentially in the 2nd round.
Yeah. Are there any more boxes you think he checks than Stokes? Because you had Stokes on
just the hearts and smarts and the overall character aspect.
Yeah, no, I see that. Yeah, some of these outside corners, whether that's a Cameron Bynum from Cal, one of my favorite guys, Asante Samuel could be that dark horse at 24 if Harris is off the board, if Dickerson's medicals are not where the team wants them to be. Robert Rochelle from Central Arkansas, they were at his pro day. He absolutely killed his pro day workout, and he actually was a small school guy who played in 2020. And so there's tape on him this past year, which I think is going to be important. And then Sean Wade, we talked about earlier, could really find a home in the slot in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Rochelle, I still don't know too terribly much about more than what you wrote. Ambry Thomas out of Michigan, I think is a guy you got to consider. Aaron Robinson, that would be a gift. You got him, I think, in the 3rd round, right? UCF.
Yeah, I think he's gonna be a 2nd round guy.
I mean, the list starts with Asante Samuel Jr., but I think you would probably have to grab him in at 24 overall if you want. I mean, all the signs, there are so many boxes checked there. It's just unbelievable when it comes to him. And I think he's going to check a lot of teams' boxes. I never really got it with the whole Elijah Molden thing. Is this another? He might be the cornerback of. He might be the Nick Bolton of my cornerback list.
Okay. That's fair. Yeah, he didn't test great, and he's undersized, but he's going to be in the slot, so he can be a little undersized there.
Thomas Graham Jr. Boy, you want to talk about another kid that screams Steelers, right?
Yeah, it just maybe a little bit on the smaller side for what they've been drafting lately, but a really smart kid. And yeah, Oregon's got a ton of those guys: Javon Holland, Lenore, Graham Jr. I think even Breeze, the safety who did not play in 2020. A ton of Ducks are going to get drafted this year.
And then kind of going on down into the later rounds there, Marcus Wilson hadn't thrown a shoe, you know.
Oh, yeah. That was him. I forgot about that.
You could see the Steelers being possibly attracted to him, though, right?
Yeah, I could see that. And I also looked at our Darius Washington in my mock draft, and then Benjamin St. Juste. Reports earlier in the draft season they liked him, real big, long corner, the type of corner they've been, gravitating towards lately, kind of a Brian Allen type of size.
And then obviously I put DJ Daniel on my mock draft for a potential 6th-round pick. I could maybe see that happening. Kerry Vincent Jr. is a guy I had in my first mock draft outside of opting out and all. I mean, really, what's got? I think that guy's going to get drafted. As it ends up, I think Kerry Vincent Jr. is maybe a bit low on people's list. I really see him maybe being off the board by the end of the 5th round.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, that speed is legitimate. He just didn't play in 2020. That's what's going to hurt him. But I know Jonathan, I think, is a big fan. I think Owen likes him too.
Avery Williams, the guy that's buried, I think one or two of our guys put him in their final mock drafts as well, too. If you want to root for a guy to be a Steelers 6th or 7th round pick, it's Avery Williams, right?
Sure, I just don't know what the Steelers would do with him. Is Tomlin going to give the blessing and let him return kicks and punts and all that stuff? But I love the player, and he's a really, really fun special teams guy, not only from a return standpoint, from a block punt and block kick standpoint. He's going to help you out in a ton of different ways.
All right, that to me, that's what we got, about 15 names on there, I think.
Yeah, let me throw out one or two more. I know Paulson Adebo from Stanford. I think Owen is a big fan of him. And then we should mention, just because I think he's going to at least be one of the more interesting storylines from a where will he go standpoint, Caleb Bartley from Virginia Tech. He's got that back issue. He's got COVID right now. Not going to be there in Cleveland for the draft. Where is he going to go? Peter King said the Steelers had had a lot of Zoom calls with Bartley, getting to know him quite a bit. A lot of homework to be done on him. Obviously, with a back injury, did not play this past season. But talent-wise, I mean, he's a first-round talent.
I guess you got to, it's like with Landon Dickerson. To me, he's either on your board or he's not, right? And if he's on a team's board, that would make him a 1st round or early 2nd round draft pick, right?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. But there's just a lot of unknown with him. Not only do you have the back injury, you have the opt-out in 2020, didn't get to work out in the pre-draft process. And, man, corners with back issues at this age just worry the heck out of me.
Let me ask you this. Going back to a Saturday Night Live skit that you would not get.
Nope.
Chris Farley doing the when he interviews. I think actually the skit was it the Chris Farley show or whatnot, where he sits there and he's all nervous and he has guys like Paul, guests on that are super important guests, but he's real nervous to interview them. And what you got to Google the skit, I think, with Farley, and I think it was Paul McCartney, and he keeps saying, you remember that time when you were with the Beatles, and the only thing he could say he could say after answering or after asking the question was like, that was cool. Make sure if you listen to that, you Google that old Chris Farley segment. I don't know what made me think about that, but what were we talking about here?
Caleb Farley.
Yeah, I had a question here.
Okay. Yeah, you had a question there. Yeah. And there was no question.
You know me, I go and try. Can you imagine? I mean, you obviously have met me and spent limited amount of time with me. Now, can you imagine living with me?
Yeah, your wife is a saint.
Yeah, absolutely. Back to the question. Would you rather have to be worried about Landon Dickerson's medicals, or from, and this is all from what we know that's out there, and obviously we're not on the other side of this. Would you rather be concerned about Landon Dickerson's medicals or Caleb Farley's medicals?
I mean, they're both pretty concerning. I think Dickerson has the more extensive history, but he's also come back from some of these injuries too, which, maybe that helps him a little bit since he's simply recovered from them and not been worse for wear. I don't know. I think just with corners and backs and the athleticism that they're going to need, I guess I'm a little more concerned about that. But obviously, you'd have to really thoroughly vet both of those guys.
Sure. But even after the fact, which one would you be most scared of the Steelers drafting in the first round?
Farley.
Okay. I would as well. Yeah, you start messing with that whole neck and back thing, man.
Yeah, right. Last mention with a corner is Zach. I think is it Zach or Zach McPherson out of Texas Tech. I don't know much about his game, but he's got literally the most athletic family I think I've ever come across. He's got like every brother and sister has played football or baseball or soccer. His dad played, I think, at Boston College and with the Patriots. His mom played football. His mom was an offensive lineman for like the Women's Football League in the 80s or something. It's just like the craziest story there. If he gets a late round pick or undrafted guy, he'd be just a fun, feel good story to talk about.
All right, let's do the safety dance.
Safety dance here. Yeah, the safety class, I think, is a really bad safety class. Like, there's a couple guys at the top, Richie Grant and Morg from TCU are the top guys, but the depth here is not that strong. Maybe you're looking at mid-round kind of guy, Jamar Johnson from Indiana. I think Nigel Dean from Florida State is going to probably intrigue the Steelers quite a bit here with his versatility, coming back from a torn ACL himself. But the safety class, I think, is pretty weak. I
would agree, but boy, did I sure want to try to maybe slam a free safety type in there for the Steelers.
But who? I mean, there's not a lot of guys. I mean, that's one reason why I went Darius Washington, because they can kind of fill both free safety and slot corner. You could look at Javon Holland, but he's going to be probably around two guys. So I'm not sure if he even makes it to 55 for the Steelers.
Boy, Richie Grant sure has some fun tape to watch, doesn't he?
Big physical hitter, had a great Senior Bowl weekend again. Central Florida's got a ton of guys with him and Robinson and Tate Gowan. I think is a sleeper corner in this class, but Grant's going to be the first, I think, Central Florida kid drafted.
I mean, either him or Trayvon Moehrig out of TCU. I think probably one of the top two guys. Obviously, I don't think the Steelers are going to be able to have Javon Holland. Another kid that we talked to on a pro day called really fits and all. It's just he's not a great class top to bottom, and if you're going to want one, you're probably going to want to get one early there. Just don't see the Steelers going that way, and really, you start going down the list, you start looking at some of these, the tape on some of these guys, and you're like, yeah, I mean, Divine Diablo is a guy that's always had. I think if you look at my Twitter feed, you might find a couple of clips from over the last couple of years that he's kind of one of those guys that just jumps out on tape on certain situations with him. The problem is because he is that guy in a weak safety class, if the Steelers got him, they'd have to get him in the third or fourth round. I could see it. I mean, of the guys of the safety of this year's safety class, of the guys that I think most likely could wind up being Steelers because of where they would be drafted, I think I would have to circle Divine Diablo being it. That's it. That's the list.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. And I believe Terrell Austin was at his pro day. I'm going to double check that here with my pro day tracker. But that's notable. So let me go ahead and check here with Terrell Austin where he was at. He was at Virginia Tech.
That's big. That's big when it comes to third or fourth round. So if you're
where do you play him? Because he's this hybrid guy, Diablo, a linebacker, safety type of dude.
Yeah, that's for them to figure out, not me. Okay. I scout the players.
Yeah, I think Diablo is probably one of the more sensible picks. Maybe one of the Pitt guys. Paris Ford tested terribly, but DeMar Hamlin regarded as a very, very heady safety. Local kid out of Pitt.
Look, if you wanted to do a little bit of that dimebacker stuff, with him.
That's true. They probably gonna need a dimebacker.
That could be kind of the guy. I think if you're playing the home game version of the Steelers Depot podcast, pull out your list and circle Divine Diablo in the third or fourth round. That very well could be a guy we talk about after the draft.
I'm with you. I think I'm really glad you suggested that. That's probably the most likely name on this list. And then also you got to mention at least there the USC kid that worked with Troy. I can't really pronounce Hufanga. You profiled him. Yeah, you profiled him, I think, a bit. And so that's anytime you got Troy working out with a guy, it's worth at least mentioning.
Yeah, that's where and you want to talk about late round, possibly undrafted guys. The only other guy that I have really circled here, Alex, Mark Webb out of Georgia.
Okay. Yeah. Again, so many Georgia guys this year. Yeah, his production was pretty light, though, I think, was the concern with Mark Webb. All right, so that is the defense. I think we cover the names pretty strong here. I think it'll be, generally speaking, an offensive-focused draft, but certainly there are several needs defensively that can and will be addressed.
All right, well, do you envision any trades happening whatsoever?
Again, those are impossible to predict. The history says it probably won't happen. Colbert's comments seem to indicate there wasn't a strong appetite to trade up, and very rarely does he trade down. He's not traded down in any draft at any point since 2010. So the history there is not particularly strong. Again, everything's, you never know until you know, so can't guarantee anything, but I'm not expecting any trades.
I'm not either. If they do anything, I think it would be some sort of a day 3 move up or something. I don't know. Turn a seventh into the sixth and use something from 2022. That would be the only thing that I see.
I mean, it could be something because you have that big gap there from 140 in the 4th round to 216 in the 6th round. So maybe you try to make a move there in the 5th round to get a guy, because you have such a long wait there. But again, who knows? All right, Dave, last thing, and I know we kind of sprinkled this in throughout the show, had mentioned, the 7 guys, and I feel like, really feel like they're going to be Steelers, just kind of have that fit and that feel of being Steelers. It's not that all 7 of these guys will get drafted, but mentioned a lot of them. I'll kind of run through the list: Robert Hainsey, Zaven Collins, Pat Freiermuth, Dalen Hayes, Asante Samuel Jr., Derek Barnes, and the late run guy, Braylon Jones, a guard center out of Houston. All kind of feel like they could be Steelers.
Love the list. Absolutely love it. I was not shocked working with you as long as I've worked with you, knowing how in-depth you get on this. Absolutely love the list. I have a really, really good feeling that you're going to hit at least one of those names on there.
I hope so. We'll see. All right, Dave, that is, I think, about wrapping up our draft talk here. I mean, if there's anything else you want to discuss here, because offense or defense or anything, because this is the last time to do so before the draft gets underway.
Yeah, one thing we forgot to cover, Alex, and it was huge breaking news. How did we miss this? The Steelers exercised the 5th-year option on Minkah Fitzpatrick. Yes, it was reported on Tuesday.
Yeah, sorry, I should have mentioned at the top of the show, been so wrapped up in draft talk. Yeah, this was a foregone conclusion. I think the only interesting part was who they did not mention, at least was not reported. The team has not said anything official, but no mention of Terrell Edmunds and his 5th-year option yet.
Yeah, not yet. That doesn't mean, look, May 3rd is the deadline, but I don't know, you kind of would have thought all these things are being reported now across the league and all like that. We'll see if it happens by the time the draft gets underway here, but the Steelers have not obviously yet confirmed. That's another interesting aspect of this too. They have not officially confirmed. I don't believe them picking up Minkah's 5th-year option, but Minkah has confirmed it. Yeah. So, and once again, apologies if that breaking news made you drop your coffee or anything like that. We will not be responsible for it. But this has been a foregone conclusion with him. 2022 now means that he'll earn a little bit over $10 million in 2022. Talking about Minkah, I would expect him to sign an extension well before that actually happens. And that's it.
For the extension, that's going to be probably a summer of 22 thing before the 2022 season.
I would go ahead and mark it down right now, just like I predicted T.J. Watt. Once he got his 5th-year option picked up, that he will sign a new contract before the start of this regular season in 2021. Go ahead and count on Minkah to sign a contract extension prior to the start of the 2022 regular season.
All right, there you go. Lock it in. All right, Dave, pivoting back to the draft. Again, some more reports, I think, from Ed Bouchette and also from Jason Luck and before about the Steelers' interest in Kyle Trask. And that's a guy we've talked about off and on throughout the draft process. Neither of us are super high on him, but I've kind of, I've seen many people compare him to Mason Rudolph. I think that's a relatively fair comparison. So maybe it's not a shock to know the Steelers have some interest in Kyle Trask out of Florida.
I mean, I'll believe it when I see it.
Do you think we're going to see it? Are you pessimistic or questioning?
I don't think they're going to. I don't think they're going to, and I don't think they should draft a quarterback. Now, as I've stated all along, the plausibility factor is there, especially when you add into the fact that technically you have Ben Roethlisberger under contract past 2021, but that technically will end 5 days after the Super Bowl. So you don't have any quarterbacks really under contract for 2022. I've said it all along. It's plausible. I'm not expecting it, nor do I think if you can't get a top 5 quarterback in this year's draft, then why do it? You're sitting there with Dwayne Haskins, who's got pedigree that intrigued you enough. You haven't even seen him on the field yet. And look, do I think Haskins is going to pan out long term? Not from where I sit right here, right now. I don't. Maybe as a backup for you for a few years down the line there. But I mean, if you're just going to throw a mid-round draft pick just so you have a developmental quarterback on the roster, why?
Yeah, I hear you, but I think they're going to like Trask's overall accuracy, his toughness, the production, the story. He's overcome a lot of obstacles and, didn't even start for his high school team and ended up, starting for Florida and having a really good season overall. So I'm not in support of the idea, but I'll put it this way, Dave. I think it's a lot more plausible they draft a quarterback this year than it was a year ago.
I mean, if you do it, obviously Joshua Dobbs is out the door, right?
I don't know what you do. I don't think you cut anybody right away. There's no need to cut somebody, on Monday if you draft Trask in say the second or third round.
Let me ask you this too. Let's say you secured a Trask, a Mond, somebody in that third or fourth round range, okay? Mm-hmm. This is just hypothetical. Would they even consider trading Mason Rudolph for like a fourth or fifth round pick? Now, a team acquiring Mason would have to really love him because he's in the final year of his contract. So are you just going to throw a fourth or fifth round draft pick at a guy like Mason Rudolph to the Steelers as a 1 year rental? And the answer to that's probably no. So you'd probably have to go into it saying, we're going to trade for Rudolph. We're going to sign him to this kind of whatever deal there. Is there any chance that they like Dwayne Haskins and whoever they would draft, if they drafted somebody enough that they would flip Rudolph for like a fifth round pick?
Yeah, I can't see it. I think they still like him overall. They still like him as the backup this year, and they're in that win now mentality. So I don't think that would be the case.
Okay. I don't either, but I just want to throw that out as the only other way fathomable. Maybe they might go that way.
Now, if they draft, Trask or whoever you want to put in there, they would have a depth chart of Ben, Rudolph, the winner between I don't know how this would look, to be honest with you. I mean, I think maybe what you would do, I'm just trying to map this thing out, is you'd have 3 quarterbacks on your 53. So you'd have Ben, Rudolph, and let's just say Kyle Trask, and then you have a battle between Haskins and Dobbs, and whoever wins that gets a practice squad spot. And if you ever needed to have one of those guys play with their injuries, you would then call up a Dobbs or Haskins to jump Trask, then to get work or to get action on the 53. So it'd be a messy situation, but as Colbert said, it is your most important position. There's no one under contract for next season. There's a lot of uncertainty there. It's a really unique situation, and that's kind of probably going to break some of the rules we think conventionally about how this team addresses and kind of their philosophy of how they carry quarterbacks and what they do with the position.
I sure hope we are not having to talk about a drafted quarterback, but that's me.
Yeah, I don't want it either, but we might. So who knows? But anything else here, Dave? So 24. It sounds like the reports, at least, take them with a grain of salt. But now, if Najee Harris is there, it sounds like he's going to be the guy. And the question is, to me, what if he's not there? And that's certainly possible if Miami takes him, even if the Jets take him, whatever the case is. Then what do they do? But to me, if Harris is there, I believe he's the pick.
All right. I believe that I've got to believe that Dickerson, if he, will be the pick if cleared medically. It's a variable. It's a coin flip from where I sit. If they have to choose between Harris and Dickerson, and if Dickerson's cleared, I think Dickerson's the pick. Otherwise, I think Najee Harris is the pick. I think it's one of three players here. I think it's Najee Harris. I think it's Landon Dickerson. Actually, I'll go four players. I think it's Landon Dickerson, Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, or Asante Samuel Jr. Really kind of the dark horse kind of guy.
Do you believe any of the reports or rumors, whatever you want to frame it as that the team might like Javonte Williams more than Travis Etienne?
Honestly, it doesn't match up. It doesn't match up from the Blues Clues aspects. I don't think. No.
Right. I mean, that's true.
I think it's possible. They did send Eddie Faulkner there, so
nobody.
There is that, So, I would be surprised if he's the guy. I would really, really be shocked if he's the guy in the first round. A lot of things would have to break a lot of different ways, I think. And then obviously the medicals on Dickerson be bad. I would be surprised. I had it really as one of the four guys there.
Sure. No, I agree with that. But I think when it comes down to at least Williams versus Etienne, in terms of who they might rank higher, it might be Williams just because he's a more powerful back, and they want power, they want physicality. And Etienne, he's dynamic and he'd be a big play guy, but I think you see more power and more that toughness, that tough mutter out of Williams than you do Etienne. So it would not surprise me, at least in terms of the way they rank this thing, that Harris is 1, Williams is 2, and then Etienne is probably number 3.
All right, who would you pick? You have the choice of. I guess I'll even allow you to have Zaven Collins on the board. Collins, Najee Harris, Landon Dickerson, Travis Etienne, Asante Samuel Jr., Tevin Jenkins.
Well, if I could pick anyone, I'm taking Creed Humphrey out of Oklahoma.
Really? Okay.
To do that, yeah, I think I would go Creed Humphrey, and I think Alex Leatherwood from Alabama is a guy that we should. I would probably be pretty high on as well. So who would I take? I don't know how exactly I would rank things, but if it was me and Humphrey was there, I would take him.
All right. You're that sold on him.
I am. I think he's a 10-year plug-and-play center, and his team needs a center.
Okay.
All right, Dave.
I would take assuming I had the proper medicals, I'd take Landon Dickerson.
Fair enough. All right, Dave. I think we should probably wrap up the show. We're getting pretty long here in this one. Let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
Let's do it. George writes in. Alumni mock draft, the OSU Alumni Steelers mock draft day mock award. Longtime fan of website, not to mention supporter. So bring me great pleasure to announce that you are the 2021 recipient of the OSU Alumni Steelers mock draft day mock award. The committee, one, was particularly impressed with your decision to ignore the Najee Harris candy and go straight to the sustenance that Trey Sermon offers. To us Buckeye faithful, we're getting to the root of it here. To us Buckeye faithful, it comes as no surprise that a good sermon is followed by the selection of Baron Browning, or as we'd like to say in the Pittsburgh branch, the second coming of Lawrence Timmons, a.k.a. the real LTLB. Finally, to finish with the selection of punter, Drew Chrisman was inspiring.
My goodness, laying it on thick.
Of course, the committee would derelict its duties to not point out that if you had traded back from round 1, you would have been able to fill your center and guard needs with Josh Byers or a Wyatt Davis. We similarly feel that Luke Farrell can fill in all your blocking tight end needs and are more willing to catch a few passes if you're inclined. Unlike the OSU offense, throw some his way. In addition, we would like to note that trading back would give you an opportunity to consider Sean Wade, a slot cornerback safety, and a myriad other linebackers like Peter. Boy, this guy's lining it up here. Finally, with 2 picks of Notre Dame players did seem excessive. At least they were not from Michigan. Congratulations, Brutus Buckeye. Keep up the good work, George. Great. George, it's so great to hear from you. George, a long time listener, reader, contributor of the Terrible Podcast. I think he is a Buckeye fan there.
I would say so. Yeah, you get to be Brutus for a college game next season. I think you get to be the mascot.
I have. How many awards have you won? Mock Drafts Award this offseason?
None as prestigious as that one. I'll tell you that.
All right. Thanks, George. Good to hear from you, brother. Jelani Suleiman, longtime contributor. With the consensus seeming like Najee Harris being the Steelers' pick, if he is there, do you guys see any prospects that could potentially fall to the Steelers at 24, like how David DeCastro did when it seemed like they were going to take Dante Hightower? That would prompt them to take a prospect over Harris. For example, could you see Parsons falling due to character concerns, or Caleb Farley due to injury concerns and opt-outs? Thanks as always. Looking forward to the draft.
Yeah, I could see someone like Farley for sure fall to Pittsburgh. Would they take him? I mean, they've done their homework on him. I just think there's a lot of risk and projection there, so I feel like they wouldn't. Could a Tevin Jenkins fall? That's possible. And could he be on the radar? Absolutely. But again, not at the pro day just makes it a tough sell. So, yeah, it's hard for me to find that name of guys where they were at the pro day who could also fall. It could be Old Yari, the edge from Georgia. It could be Micah Parsons as well. But I think the short list of guys who really check the boxes that may fall, I mean, I think Christian Darrisaw could slip a little bit. But again, they were not at his pro day. So I guess it would be a Micah Parsons. But, I don't have that name there for you.
Man, we got a lot of email questions in here. Hey, fellas, this one's from Derek. The way I see the Steelers have 6 big holes they need to fill in the upcoming draft: center, offensive tackle, running back, tight end, edge, defender, and cornerback. This does not include a backup safety, middle linebacker, or wideout. They pick seemingly every year. The Steelers have 5 picks in the first 4 rounds. Unless they trade back, they will not be able to fill 6 needs in the first 4 rounds. Which position gets pushed to the later rounds and why? This really shows trading back in the first might really be a good idea this year. Also, which player in this draft feels most like a Pittsburgh Steeler any round? I think Alex knew you were coming. He has got you covered with the with the Steelers kind of picks there. What about the rest of the questions there, Alex?
Yeah, in terms of what position kind of loses out, for me, my market was tight end, and I say that for a couple of reasons, because you do have your starter in Eric Ebron. You can probably find and sign a cheap veteran backup, but Jesse James is still out there, obviously, and just the history of it. They have not drafted a tight end above the 5th round since 2007, so hopefully that changes this year, but the history says it will not, so that's why I went tight end as the loser in terms of where they get selected.
All righty, and let's see if we can move even further along down the email list here. Get back to it. Chuck Griffin writes in, first round trifecta. Dave, thanks to the Steelers Depot team for a great draft coverage this year. Both you and Alex have 100 units to place on the following trifecta bet. Oh, here we go. We're going to lose some money. 49ers, who's the pick at number 3? Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, or the field?
The field. That's funny. I went Trey Lance in my 7th-round mock draft. Maybe that's a little, because I know Mac Jones is a popular pick, but I'm going Trey Lance there.
I will go Mac Jones. Patriots, what is their move at number 15? Move up for a quarterback, stay put for best player available, or move down for more picks?
Belichick does like trading down a lot, but I think they move up for somebody, probably a quarterback, maybe a Trey Lance or someone like that. Mac Jones if he slips, but I think they go up and get somebody.
I would go with you as well, too. They move up for a quarterback. Belichick does not care about trading those things away because he knows he damn sure better not spend one on a wide receiver anyway. There'll be less temptation for him to spend a draft pick on a tight end. I think he does go up and gets one of those quarterbacks there. Steelers, if Najee is on the board at 24, who is the pick? Najee Harris or the field?
Well, I just answered it. I'm going Najee Harris.
I'm taking the field, brother. I'm taking the field. This will obviously, this whole entire process is going to be framed as fungible Dave hating Najee Harris. It's just, how I am about the whole kit and caboodle here, and specifically, look, I think if Landon Dickerson and his medicals pass, which I have no idea of knowing whether or not they will or not. I think that's the way to go. I think you got to build the center of that offensive line before you do anything else, and then you can follow up with a guy like Trey Sermon in the second. So I will take the field, and playing into that is I'm still not 100% sold. Najee Harris is still on the board at 24 overall. We'll see. That's a good question.
I'm not sold either that he'll be there, but if he is there, I think he's the guy.
Okay. John Caldarelli, fellow Steelers, it's a great time of year, draft, rebirth, and reaffirmation. Let's not overthink what the Steelers will do. When Mr. Rooney speaks, we must listen. We need to fix the running game and offensive line. It's not Steeler football when you repeatedly fail to gain 1 yard running for a first down. Smash Mouth AFC North football will be back in Pittsburgh this fall. Big dominant running back and a nasty center are coming with the first 2 picks in any order. Hey, here. John, you're not going to get an argument, I don't think, out of Alex and I here. Imagine a physical, tenacious blocking tight end with the 3rd pick. Okay, maybe 3rd or 4th. To continue this mandate, my favorite player in this draft from Notre Dame, Tommy Tremble. Add a big body tackle in the 4th, and don't look back. Finally, a Steelers player with connection. Potentially fit 6th or 7th round from Mean Joe Green's North Texas State is Jalen Darden. That's a guy I think we mentioned maybe a time or two during these pre-draft podcasts, right?
Yeah, Darden was super productive, 31 touchdowns over his last 2 seasons for the Mean Green, undersized at like 5'7.5", $180. You know, he's looking to become the first North Texas player drafted since 2004. And you know the last, and I believe this is true at least, but the last North Texas wide receiver drafted, do you know who that was? I'll give you a gold star if you get this one.
Wow, I'm trying
I'll just answer it. Last North Texas wide receiver to be drafted, Ron Shanklin in 1970 by the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Great. That's great info there. All right, he's obviously a big Darden fan there. What are your thoughts about these 2 players? Talking about I guess he's talking about
Tremble and Darden.
Yeah, you know how I feel about Tremble. You know how Alex feels about Tremble. Look, I mean, if you a late round guy like Darden, sure, I could see it. I'd like Darden more than I do Schwartz. May the Schwartz not be with us this weekend.
Yeah, Darden's electric.
I see your Schwartz is as big as mine.
God, I hope they do not draft him just for these puns. Just God forbid. Darden's electric. He'd be a good fit in Canada's offense as a day 3 guy.
All right, Darren Boyer. Hi, David Knox. Please tell me the site is doing the annual draft contest where we can submit 50 player predictions. Draft season is one of the best times of year. Draft contest is my favorite to interact with the site. I'll even volunteer to tally the results. We'll keep that in mind. Darren from Brooklyn. Darren, good to hear from you. Thanks for the email there. Jonathan Mason writes in, Alex and Dave, I don't get some people's hard stance on not taking a running back in the 1st round, especially in the back half. If you want one of the top guys, get them versus guessing which one of the later round guys will hit. That hasn't seemed to work for the Steelers. I'll go with Alex's view on drafting a running back. I know y'all are talking about defensive guys in today's podcast, so forgive me if you did mention Charles Snowden. I don't think we mentioned Snowden from Virginia, the edge, did we?
No, we didn't. He's a really long, lanky dude at like 6'6", 230. He's going to have to add weight, and I just worry about the skinny ankles and bend and stuff like that. But I had him in one of my early mock drafts because he is just kind of a unique body type, but he is pretty lanky.
Jonathan writes, unique athlete, all ACC, team captain, Senior Bowl invite, and production. However, comma, he writes, I like how I impact some of this. However, comma is one of my most favorite sayings. However, comma, a fractured ankle shortened his senior season, so he didn't get to test and likely will fall later than expected. What's your thoughts on him for the Steelers? Thanks for the great draft. Jonathan, we hear you, brother, and I think Alex just kind of summed him up for you. That Alex had him on in an earlier mock draft, and kind of what the concerns are on him.
Yeah, you've had your if I had my druthers. That's kind of coming back in your lingo.
People don't like circle back. Me using circle back to the Steelers is another one. I'm off minutia for a while. Plausible. I went through a plausible stage. I think
you're still in the plausible stage.
What other Dave-isms are there?
I mean,
except the stuttering.
Where's my bingo card? The druthers has been one. Plausible. I think those have been the big ones. Yeah, however, comma, obviously the time-honored classic.
Let's see. What's another one that I like to use? You gotta You got to think, or there's another one that I use too that people have commented.
I mean, this is one. Trying to think about things.
Yeah. That's
this is a classic one.
This is one.
Very meta of you to. What's that one I was thinking of? Yeah. So
let me ask you let me ask you a question. Is up there? I think on Dave-isms there. Our buddy Mike Adesso. Man, Mike, could you use any more smaller font, brother? I feel like I'm in the doctor's office here. Dave, read line 8. Hi, guys. The day has arrived. It's draft time. Before I get to my question, I want to again thank you guys and whole Depot team for again killing it this draft. You did damn sure right. They did. All your hard work was evident, and I tell everyone that I listen to check you guys out. Thanks for that, Mike. 2 mid-round guys I haven't heard you discuss much are Indiana's safety slot, Jamar Johnson. I apologize for if you cover him on the Wednesday show. I don't think we even covered him much today because that safety class is just
I mentioned his name, but he's flying under the radar.
Mike says he seems like a perfect fit for the Steelers that can play both safety spots and in the slot. Center Drew Dahlman, son of Chris Dahlman. We just had a profile go up him on the site not too long ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dahlman's probably underrated center, day 3 guy, Stanford guy. I think his dad coached in the NFL, so there's some bloodlines here the Steelers could be attracted to. And Johnson, I didn't get to really study Johnson too much in this process, but he definitely seems like a sleeper safety in a pretty underwhelming class.
He says, by the way, while I have your attention, I think the Steelers go Najee, Myers, and then Trimble in rounds 1 through 3. All right, Michael, we got you on record there. I'll write you down. Austin Hackett. Hey, guys, Austin, Denver, Colorado. Happy draft week. Thanks so much for all the Depot team and all the fantastic content the last couple months. My question is, do you guys think this is a year as likely the team trades back out of the first round? I understand it takes 2 to tango. It's not giving anybody, blah, blah, blah. Do you think Colbert and Tom will be more inclined to try this year and maybe even take an offer less than what they would normally do? This draft feels a lot like 2019. Blah, blah, blah. Austin, look, I mean, it's so hard to predict these things. I mean, every draft's different. We don't know how the phone's going to ring, how the offer is there going to be. But I just think what Kevin Colbert said alone, he's pretty truthful when it comes to certain things, non-player specific and tip of the cards. I'll be surprised if they move up or down in the first round, period. And I think if they move anywhere at all in this draft, I think it's to go up somewhere after round 3, I guess. But, it's so hard to predict these things. And that's why I don't think I've ever mocked in a mock draft trade, and especially in a final mock draft there, because, I mean, is it plausible? Yeah. I mean, it's plausible every year that the Steelers trade up or back, but to sit here and say, do we think it's more likely this year because of X? I mean, I don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely merit in trading down to try to acquire maybe a 3rd, 4th round pick and fill some of those needs. It's hard to predict, and I just think he's going to stay. I mean, most years they stay. I don't think they're going to go up. They could go down, but I think ultimately push comes to shove, they stay at 24 and make the pick.
One more from Chris, and thank you for everybody. I mean, our email box is just loaded with questions here. From C. Michael, Chris writes in, love the show. 2 things. There's a position some love to push, how you need a partner to trade down, 2 to tango. Truth is, there's almost always a team willing to move up that has need, and a player they favor at a position they're worried will be taken, especially if you take a take a bit less than typical value-wise. If it makes sense in terms of value projected left at our position of need, take back a little less if necessary. Based on depth, blah, blah, blah. It makes all the sense in the world to move down 2 to 8 spots to move up. And boy, he's going deep here. Hell, move down a second time if you don't love who's there. It really seems like let's not get stubborn and simply take what leftover falls to us. His first question seems to be all around the trade aspect of it, and Chris, we get it, man. But I mean, it's hard enough for us to sit here and go through all the prospects and which ones best fit the Steelers and mock them all up. I mean, it's next to impossible to predict what the Steelers might do on the clock when it comes to a trade and to try to say, yeah, I guarantee you they're going to trade up or trade down. Just look at Colbert's history.
Yeah, and to the idea of, don't be content about just, letting whatever falls to you fall. Well, trading down kind of is that. You're trading down and seeing, whoever falls to you, of the guys that you like and hope that they're still there. And yeah, I mean, there's always teams that want to come up, but is the terms of the deal going to work? I know you're saying let's take less value, but that's probably not a good way to really frame these things trade-wise. So there's always teams that want to come up, but is the price going to be right? That's the other part of the tango.
Second, what kind of running scheme does it appear we will run? What percentage chance of likelihood will it be the scheme? Will it be the scheme, you think, and what type of running back would fit the scheme the most? The answer to that is yes. A good offensive coordinator will build a scheme around his players. End of story. All of it. If you start going in there with this is the way we do things here, putting the square pegs in the round hole, you're gonna run into the issue. But look, today's NFL, when it comes to run schemes, unless you lean more heavily into running outside zone, which the Steelers really have not done a lot of period in how long, Alex? I'm talking heavy outside.
Yeah.
I mean, we see the pin and pull and stuff like that. But I mean, you got to have a special group of offensive linemen to do that effectively. You have to have a special type of one cut back that's played that kind of system as well too. This team runs inside zone. It runs power. It runs gap, it runs man, duo. I mean, how would you best answer that question, Alex?
Well, yeah, I think the way you framed it is well said. When you're as bad of a run team as you were this past season and really even in 2019, I think everything's on the table. I think you need to have new ideas, a new approach, and not say no to anything. They did bring in Chris Morgan, whose background is more of a zone scheme. I don't know how much it's going to influence it, or if they just wanted to have a good coach in Morgan and his background and specific, zone scheme appetite, if that's going to change much or not. I'm not quite sure, but I think the focus is just going to be on acquiring talent and going from there, and then, as you said, matching your scheme to the personnel that's available to you.
It doesn't get any more simpler than that, right?
Yeah, I think you just want to. First step is acquire the talent, and when you have a lot of talent, I get asked about this. What's Matt Canada's approach going to be? How much is his college influence going to impact their draft picks? And I'm sure it will to some extent, but you just want good talent. If you have really strong talent, and Canada has the whole playbook open to him, he can then get really creative. You're limited as an OC when your personnel is limited and your talent level isn't strong. So get me good talent, and then you can have fun and add all these wrinkles after the fact.
All right. Anything else you would like to add here?
No, I mean, we could talk for another 3 hours, I'm sure. For the site tomorrow, we'll have Scott Prevel's big board with just names on them, a kind of handy draft guide. And speaking of which, I'll put together a draft day packet with all the mock drafts and profiles and studies and just kind of a one-stop shop. It'll be a massive draft day packet to kind of carry you guys through draft weekend. And so we're really excited to get to finally have the draft year and talk about whoever this team ends up taking.
Absolutely, we are. And make sure you get by SteelersDepot.com and participate in that draft contest, please. Interested to see how it plays out this year. I think normally we have a good, 100 entries or so like that. People take time. Just download that Excel spreadsheet, fill it out, and email it to me. It really is that simple there. Okay, anything, are we missing anything at all? We got the fifth year option. Is there anything late breaking here?
I really haven't checked much of Twitter during the show here, but I don't think so. It's going to be very interesting. A running back in particular for Pittsburgh, what the approach is there, how the board falls, and is Harris going to be there? I think that's the first question I'm asking myself when pick 18 rolls in with Miami. Will Harris be the guy? And if so, that depending on what Miami does at 18, kind of might start mapping out the Steelers' game plan of who they're going to draft.
All right. We will be back, as you said, on Friday, right? First thing?
Yep, Friday, talk about who was the pick at 24, assuming they stay there.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. We can always use donations. SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button bar, upright navigational bar. We make sure to share the love with all of our contributors on that as well, too. Also, if you like an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, please go to the site, hit the ad-free button, upright navigational bar. For $25 for one calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of the site. That's been very popular since we instituted it a few years ago as well. So happy draft season. Happy draft day. We'll be here for you all weekend. Just tons of content. Steelers Depot will make their 56,000th post sometime in the coming days here. Which one of us is going to get that honor?
I don't know. Hopefully you. I think you deserve to have that crown.
But God bless everybody. Thank you for supporting us. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.